Says I'm live. I think we are live. Can't really tell with this thing sometimes because the software that I work with kind of has to get in sync with Facebook. So sometimes I never know. I don't know until people start commenting. So if you're out there watching, I want you to do two things. One, send stars my way. You guys know me when I'm doing these things. I have to make my living by panhandling for Facebook stars. How sad is that? Um, and comment. Leave some comments here. Today we've got a very special guest on the show. Um, when I was in my own recruiting journey, when I was in high school, this was hands down the most impressive college coach that I spoke to on my own recruiting trail. Uh, Dave Mitchell from Luther College. Yeah, I probably spoke to seven or eight college recruiters my senior year in high school, and I had the luxury of having a little brother that made the state finals before I even made it to state the first time. So a lot of these guys, I could tell right away that I could tell within 5 minutes of talking to them that they'd be like, "Oh, so you like to wrestle, huh? You like to get your hand raised?" And pretty quickly they'd go on to, "So how about that brother of yours? We think we can get him on board?" And one thing that sticks out with Dave Mitchell is he was the one of maybe two that I can remember that recruited me that yeah, he actually knew about me. I mean, I was used to spending most of my recruiting trips talking about my brother. And anyways, I'm gonna get. He's waiting here right now, and I've babbled enough, and I'm probably made it more awkward than it needs to be just by rambling and stuff already. But let me see if I can figure this out. Got it. I think. Hi, Dave.
Hey,
Let
Josh,
me let me get
thanks for
this
having me,
set
man.
up. Yeah, yeah, my pleasure. Man, it has been a long time. It has
Yeah,
been precisely since probably 5 minutes after I won my quarterfinals match at the state tournament in 2001. Uh, got to like you found me and you congratulated me. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't
yeah.
even believe that anybody was watching me.
You
So
know,
that was I'll never forget that. That was one of my best moments of my entire life, and and you're happy for me in that moment. So I'll never forget that. I've always had a ton of respect for you for that.
thank you, man. I remember you and your dad visiting campus and how great it was, and had a lot of respect for your family all the way through. And then when you started getting pin doctors going,
Mm,
seeing that you were the guy that are getting it going, and it's such a huge thing, such a huge part of our sport in the state of Iowa and beyond now, and it's just really cool to see. So
uh,
congrats on that.
thanks, man. Thank you. So first things first. How you like my shirt?
I love it. Where did you get that thing?
You'll never believe this. So I started a landscaping business with my dad recently. I just wasn't making ends meet with Facebook stars, and we had a bid today, and my dad was wearing a Luther College wrestling shirt at the bid, and I'm like, "Dad, where'd you get that?" And he was just like, "Oh, Quentin Aney gave it to me. Got it from the '80s."
Oh,
And I was like, "Hey, I need a solid. You need to go home and wash that for me." And he was like, "Okay, I can do that." So, but there was a catch though, and that catch is going to be the reason why I'm going to try not to stand up throughout this podcast. And the catch is my dad still wears a size large. And the last time I think I ever wore a size large T-shirt was probably the last time I talked to you, 22 years ago. I graduated into XXL a long time ago.
I got you covered. I'll send you a new one, the right size.
Yeah, but anyways, got a lot of stuff to talk about. I've had a lot of people send me, questions and topics and stuff, and this should be a good one, man. People are excited.
I'm excited too, man. It's great to talk wrestling in general and reconnect with old friends.
Definitely, definitely. So, how do oh, I accidentally had a pop up on in front of my screen. So, train like a Norseman. I can't remember off the top of my head what the date is. I know it's coming up. Excited?
Very, very excited. I think we're kind of far enough removed from the COVID stuff now that it's kind of back
Mm,
full bore. And we're adding this girls' team camp this summer too. and I think that's going to be super well attended. So it's just fun to always, I think we've been at these for 25 plus years, and to just see them
Hmm.
evolve and grow and tweak them from year to year, but keep the core of who we are, which is a lot what you're talking about, Joshua, is that I really care
Hmm.
about the betterment of young people and how they
Hmm.
grow in the sport of wrestling, and providing opportunities for all kids on programs to get better, right? And I know from my
Definitely.
own personal wrestling journey that I was kind of a late bloomer, and I had two boys that wrestle, and I could tell from them too that they were a little bit late bloomers. And so, giving
Hmm.
them matches that are competitive as they're coming through
Yeah.
was a really big deal. And these camps were an important part of their development. And I think the way our camp system works, we're able to do that. We kind of have this ranking system, and we don't have any weight classes, so you're able to get competitive matches throughout the board. For your best guys are going to wrestle the best guys, but then the guys that are in the middle that are they're going to keep growing are an important part of that. And I won't talk too long here, but that goes back to my high school coach, Dave Ripley. Dave Ripley
Hmm.
was the master at Riceville of taking a below average wrestler and
Hmm.
making them significantly above average and getting great participation. And when you do that year after year after year, you end up having really good teams. And that's what he had for a lot of years at Riceville. So a lot of that is incorporated here too.
Nice, nice. What would be some of Dave Ripley's coaching fundamentals and tactics that you would say you that you've learned from and you implement into your coaching game today?
Yeah.
I know you touched on it a little bit, but when it actually comes into the field of coaching, in
Yeah.
terms of like the competitions and the practices, a lot of what you do and like what you've shown for a couple few decades now,
Yeah.
how much of it does derive from Dave Ripley?
Yeah. Technically, the sport keeps evolving, right? So
Hmm.
skills evolve. He was very good at fundamentals and position. And in our wrestling room was a one mat wrestling room. We'd have 30 to 40 guys in that one mat wrestling room, and there was no real weight room in the 80s and prior to that. And so he, leveraged his connections to local farmers and welders in the area, and
Hmm.
he got all these big metal bars of different, round, hexagonal, and 3 feet wide, 4 feet long, and he brought them into the wrestling room and
Nice.
developed kind of a weightlifting circuit based on these rusty metal bars that we did almost every day at practice. And then,
Nice.
jumping rope and running the hallways. And so he was very creative in what he did. But technically, basics is where he was at, and those go a long ways, and that's still an important part of college wrestling. But I'd say more importantly is the philosophies that he carried through, and that is that everybody plays an important role, right? Everybody in your program it has a future in helping your program be better, even if they're just a workout partner. And Dave really cared about his athletes, and not just in wrestling, but what they were going to do after they left Riceville High School. And so I
Hmm.
think those things carried throughout. And he was just such a great supporter, even when I was in college then, and we'd come back and work out. John McGovern was a teammate of mine who was a two-time NCAA champion at Central,
Hmm.
head coach at Dubuque now, and
Got something coming on him actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyways.
yeah. So we used to go back to Riceville, work out, and if we were going to a competition, he'd try to follow us, maybe come and watch us wrestle. I remember at Christmas sometimes he'd give us a $20 bill when we walked out of the room just to help us in college, and it was just
Hmm.
a really great supporter. And then when it came to Luther, I love having him come to practice. He would come, a couple times a year and watch practice. He'd come to a lot of the home meets,
Yeah.
and that was just really awesome. He's just a really, really great guy and a great supporter.
That is awesome, and I never met him or anything, but just by the way you explain him, I can tell that I would really like the guy because the way he approaches coaching wrestling, by the way you explain it, it's kind of similar to how I approach covering wrestling with the Pin Doctors. I've written several articles on guys that never made it past JV, and most and some of them have been really popular articles too. But of course, you got your elitists that are like this is stupid, they just don't have any time to read an article about a lowly JV guy, and they have a hard time understanding why they be worthy of an article. And it's like, you know, the wrestling and the journeys people take with it. If it was important, if an accomplishment, like I say a JV guy accomplished something at the JV level, they won a match or two.
Yeah.
If it meant something to them, that's good enough for me.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
if it didn't mean something to some of your elite wrestling types that that doesn't bother. I don't care. It's not about them. It's if it meant something to them, it's good enough for me. And I feel like anybody that has wrestled is worthy of. Everybody's wrestling journey is different, and everybody's wrestling journey deserves acknowledgement. I mean, who is somebody to say that a JV guy's journey didn't mean anything to their lives? I mean,
Right.
that's just ignorant.
And I'd say I'd take that a step further, Joshua, that if there are any high school coaches out there watching right now, I bet they could name a significant number of JV wrestlers that had huge impacts, not only in their lives, but in their program and in the
Mhm.
success of the guys that were getting the accolades later on. And I think good coaches, in my opinion anyway, they understand that development is the key component of success in the sport of wrestling. And whatever that top end of that development can be, you want to
Mhm.
try to help student athletes get to that point, and that it isn't just the end in wrestling and what they accomplish. It's like you mentioned, where do they take that after they leave the sport, and how do they carry that forward? And
Definitely, I
just
agree. I agree 100%. Couldn't agree more.
yeah,
Couldn't agree
yeah,
more. So, since you started the Train Like a Norseman wrestling camp, how have you watched it evolve from the first year to till now in terms of like who have been some of the counselors that you've seen come and go over the years?
yeah. It's exciting. We've had some of the best guys in the country in our sport that have been at our camps over the years, and I've got a lot of great stories about a lot of them that I
Mm-hmm.
won't get into detail here today. But some of them, in terms of how you even make contact with those guys. Back in the day
Yeah.
before social media, how you'd make contact with those guys and secure them to come to your camp in advance, and then a guy like Cale Sanderson, for example, when he won his fourth NCAA title. We had, made contact with him. He had agreed to come to camp in July, and he was excited to come to camp. Actually, I think it was June on that one. And and then like a week before, he says, "Coach, I got nominated for these ESPY awards, and I really wish I could come to your camp, but I can't because I have to fly to LA for these ESPY awards," which
Mm-hmm.
was the first wrestler that I remember ever being nominated for that. And so
Yeah. It's a
I
big
talked with
deal.
him. Yeah, big deal, right?
Yeah.
And I talked with them, and I'm like, oh my, because we've been advertising it, and so we had lots of people coming to see Cale Sanderson. He was the best, obviously, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, is there any, when are the SBs? Is there any way I could get you a flight back to Des Moines? And then my brother has a pilot's license, and he has a small plane. We could fly down to Des Moines and fly and pick you up. And he said, Coach, and I said, hey, I'll pay you twice the amount that I agreed to pay. And this says a lot about Cale. He said, Coach, it's not about the money. I'm fine with the money you're paying me. If you need me there, I'll make it work. I'll make it work. And so he
Man.
did. He flew through the night. We flew down to Des Moines and waited for him when the plane arrived at 7 or 8 in the morning. He jumped on another plane and came to Decorah. And his brother and fiance at the time, not his wife, drove up from Ames and met him here. And
Mm-hmm.
then, he tried to get a few shut eyes in between the breaks of the camp. It just says a lot about him, right? And we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of clinicians, I think, over the years that have been like that. And some have been fun. Some have been
Yeah.
characters that have been really fun to be around. And
Yeah.
it,
Uh,
it's
it says a lot about him, but at the same time, it says a lot about your camp too. I think Kale would probably show common courtesy for any camp that he was assigned to, but I I don't know, like, but it'd be more likely for him to do that for a camp that has a good reputation, and one that he really
he's a
wants to be
great
part
guy.
of.
I think
So
he'd
that.
do it for any camp. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. He'd do it for any camp. And then, not to, I'll give credit to Iowa here. Here's the next one is Iowa. We had Steve Mako coming when he was the hottest item. And I think I had negotiated that contract through his dad, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And Steve had this kind of this mystique about him. Early, I don't know if you remember when he first started competing, his dad would go around with that van and they'd park
Yeah,
outside the weigh-ins. And there was this, kind of this sense of this kind of this mafia concept that was
yeah,
what
yeah.
it was, I have no idea. But it's like 2 days before camp, we're setting up the mats, and I get a call from Coach Brands at Iowa, and he says, "Hey, Steve Mako says he has to be at your camp in 2 days. Is that the case?" I said, "Yeah, we've advertised it. Everybody's looking forward to seeing him." And that's a problem. That's the one issue with these camps. Like when those calls come, I'd like to say no. I mean, no,
Mhm.
you got him because he was in Ohio at the time, working a camp for Iowa at
Yeah.
Ohio. And I wish I could have said, no, it's going to be fine. But for the people that were excited to come to camp and see him, I said, yeah, we need him here. And Coach Brand said, that's all I need to know. He'll be there. And he was there. He was
That's
there
cool.
2 days. It is cool. So it
Yeah.
says something about the people involved, that made this happen over all these years.
Awesome. So Coach Brands, I've he's my brother's coach right now, and I've never met him. I've never met any Brands. I've never met Dan Gable. I've never met Kale Sand. I've never met really
You will.
anybody. And
You will. You will.
but Brennan loves Tom Brands. It's one of his favorite coaches that he's ever had. Um, and like I just kind of hear like what he's like through my brother. I don't really try to pry in with Brennan because it just kind of puts him into it just puts him in a bad situation, especially if me as a media guy. I've never even asked him to try and get me credentials or anything. I try to stay away as much as possible. Um,
They probably
but
would like you though. They probably would like having you around. I mean, I think all these good programs appreciate and value people that report our sport in a real positive way, and that's you. So I bet
mm,
they'd love having you.
yeah, maybe I just conflict of interest while Brennan's in there. I just kind of nobody wants some one of their guys' older brothers in the media room, like ready to ask him questions. It's just I don't know. Uh, I figured I can just write them from home, watch you know
Yeah,
but yeah, I'd say I've met Jeff McGinnis. I've met Eric Jurgens.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
about it.
Jeez, you're going to meet a lot more of those guys. With what you're doing, you're going to meet a lot more. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes with this thing, it's like I sometimes wonder if it's even going anywhere or getting anywhere because it sometimes feels like I'm on an exercise bike. But I don't know.
I
I don't
bet
know.
from my end and from what I hear about it and what I see, we love it, man. We love it. So
Oh,
thanks for
cool.
because you're
Well,
balancing it with other full time endeavors, right? I mean, you're doing a lot of other stuff with it. So
yeah, I have
hope
to.
it's
I have
going.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to. Facebook stars just weren't. They're just not plentiful enough.
Like on your intro, star me. I'm living on Facebook star.
I mean, if you can't make it work, then might as well make light of it. Might as
Right.
well get a couple laughs out of
Right.
it. But so who are? Oh, so you got there's 5 or 6 this year.
Yep.
See,
Yep.
there's Felicity Taylor,
Yep.
uh,
He's coming up. I
and
just
your right hand man Jeff O'Gara. Did I say that right, or
you
is it
got it right,
O'Gara?
Garrett. Yep.
O'Gara.
Garrett. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I always wonder if it's O'Gara or O'Gara. So I've
Yeah.
been saying it right all these years.
You
Good.
have. Well, Garrett's what it is. Yeah, and he's
Yeah, he
great.
was a badass.
He
Whew.
was a badass. He's still a badass, but he was really a badass back in the day competing. And yeah,
Hmm.
he's been here all the way through. And the other guy that's been influential in these camps all the way through is Jeff Friedoff, who's a three-time
Yes.
All-American for me, who's from New Hampton, and
Yeah,
he's
state champ.
yeah, state champ. Yeah,
Hmm.
state champ. And he's been really influential throughout these years. And when he was an athlete here, you'll love this. You're trying to get camps going and up and running, and
Hmm.
you're just trying to figure it out as you go, and you hope you're providing a good experience. And I remember Jeff when he was a student here, right? He's
Yeah.
like sitting me down. He's like, Mitch, what are you trying to do with these camps? Like, what's your goal here? He's like, I'm like, dude, I don't know, Jeff. I'm just trying to have some opportunities for guys to wrestle. He was so focused and driven in everything he did. And here we
Yeah.
got him coaching, and he's looking at me. He's like, Mitch, what are you trying to do? You got to get more focused with what you're trying to do with these things. I got a kick out of it.
That's
So
awesome.
he's been with us ever since he was an athlete here and plays a very important role. And so that's our core group is Coach Aguirre, Coach Friedoff, and I. But then we have other people that have really jumped in and helped out over the years. Matt Onimus from Central DeWitt and Andy
Oh,
Cruz.
he's a great guy.
They're both
I've
great.
known him for a long time.
Yeah, they're helping us in a major way right now. And Greg Adams, who coached at Waukon and now he's at Osage,
Hmm.
has helped us a lot over the years. My other assistant, Coach Billy Hebner, helps out as well. And so it's just, it's a team effort to try to pull off everything that we got going on. And then, of course, Luther, the ones we do at Luther, there's a lot of people here that make that all flow. And then we have this one down in the Quad Cities that we've liked here the last few years at the TBK Bank Sports Complex.
Hmm.
And that's a neat area. The Quad Cities is a really neat place. And that really, I don't know if you've ever been to that sports facility, but it's huge and it's beautiful. And the teams that have come down there that they used to be at Luther really like it down there, and we like holding it there. So it's been fun.
Nice, nice. Now, Friedhoff, back to him.
Yeah.
Because I was, what year did he compete for you? Because I think I met him on my college visit.
Probably so in 2001 he probably had just graduated. So I think he's a 2000 grad actually. So I think my first year as head coach, he came on board, and so I think that the fall of '96 is when he started. And I think he graduated in 2000.
Mm.
really helped us set the pace. He was such a worker, such a goer, and we had other really good guys on the team, but he was such a goer, and that kind of set the work ethic, right? And I always look back. We all get lucky in different things in our life, and I've often looked back and like, what if I wouldn't have got Jeff Friedoff in that first recruiting class?
Yeah.
Things might have been different. You never know.
Yes. Yes. Just that, it's crazy to think about just, steps like that in your past that when you talk about it, like they seem like maybe minor steps, but they could have played huge dividends in terms of, what actually happened.
They
I
could.
mean, what do they call it? The butterfly effect or
That's
something?
exactly it. Chaos there. I teach math, so I know a little bit about that. Yeah.
Awesome. I love math.
Yeah.
Love math. That was what, yeah. I was in the math bees until like eighth grade.
Love it. It's
Yeah.
good.
But and one guy I remember meeting on my trip. I'll never forget this exchange because it was really really funny. I know you were laughing and I was laughing. I don't know if the other guy was laughing so much. Garrett Kurth.
Oh yeah.
He got beat in the finals at state by a guy named Cole Pape.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but I got beat in the semifinals by Cole Pape my senior year.
Yeah.
And and I state was my senior year. It was a couple of weeks before I took my visit to Luther,
Yeah.
and you got me by the shoulder and you're like, hey, I'd like you to meet somebody that you got something in common with, and this is when everybody's at the lunch table, and you brought me over to Garrett Kurth, and I'm like, oh crap, that's Garrett Kurth. And I knew
Yeah.
exactly who he was. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and walk on, right?
Yeah.
And and you're like, hey, Garrett, this guy knows a thing or two about a guy named Cole Pape. He wrestled him in the semifinals of state this year. And Garrett looks at you and he's just like, I was, I just thought it was funny. You're like razzing him, but Garrett made up for that state finals loss. How many national titles did he win for
He
you?
was a three-time finalist and one-time champ, and he was a stud, just
Yes,
a
he
huge
was.
competitor, and one of the few guys I've been around. You probably know guys like this, Joshua. That the bigger the competition, the better they were. I mean,
Mhm.
he loved bigger matches. If he was wrestling a guy that wasn't that good, he might wrestle at their level a little bit. Like it just didn't mean anything to him. But the better the guy was, the more he liked it. When he won his title, I remember before the finals, he was in the back and we were warming up, and he just couldn't stop smiling. I'd look at him, and
I
he would
bet.
just turn into a freaking big smile. Where most guys are nervous and they're
Mhm.
tight, he was just so excited and so just happy to be there. And he was a competitor. He's a great person.
Mhm.
He means a lot to me. He's a great guy.
Yeah, your whole squad. That, from what I remember, they were very congenial and very very cool guys. I could tell that you guys had a good vibe going in your room. If I never made the decision to wrestle in college until I took a year off, and if I would have actually if I was actually going to go commit to wrestle at Luther had if I made my choice my senior year,
Yeah, yeah,
my mind just wasn't in the right place, and I was making a lot of bad decisions at the time, and I didn't end up wrestling until the next year, and I just kind of ended up at Loris.
yeah.
Um, One of my friends is up there. I think that's kind of what I just needed to get away from who I was around back home. That's kind
Yeah.
of what brought me there. But
That's
man,
all good.
if I would have made my decision in high school, I mean, I'd probably like 90% chance I'd have gone to Luther. Because like I was saying in the intro, I want to say that you're maybe one of two coaches that didn't bring up my brother Justin 3 sentences into our conversation.
You're tough, man. You're tough, and I like your family. I liked your dad. I liked your demeanor. I mean, you're tough, man, and it would have been great having you at Luther. But you made a great choice. Loris is a great place too.
Yeah, yeah. Randy Stewart, he puts on a good show there. He he has a he has a technique, like a his own brand of technique that he shows that I don't know if I appreciated it when I was actually learning it. I don't know if I took advantage of the knowledge that he was given when I was there. And I regret that because now when I look back and I see how I subconsciously implement some of what he showed without even thinking about it, um, he really left. He really has a good thing going there too. And you see, I never talked to them my senior year. That was one of the few schools I never heard from.
Interesting.
Uh,
Oh, that's interesting.
but yeah, it was yeah, Loras College, and Luther was one of the two schools that three three one of the three schools that Loras College generally considered to be teams that we would not beat.
Yeah.
It was like Luther, Upper Iowa at the time, and Wartburg.
Hmm.
And yeah, so there's a lot of respect for the Luther College program from the Loris College guys.
Well, as we were coming up, when I came in the fall of '96, we hadn't won a Doomie in 2 years, right? And so we were down for a little bit. And as we were coming up, I knew it went through Randy Stewart at Loris, and it went through Al Baxter at BV, and obviously, Wartburg too, and Simpson. Ron Peterson at Simpson had a really
Yeah,
good team. We had some great duels in the early 2000s, late '90s, some really fun ones. And I had such respect for all those coaches and still do. They're all really great coaches and really did awesome jobs with their programs. And it was, when we would beat one of those teams, we felt really good about it at that point, and
yeah.
then you're going to do it again. And just part of that process. And now we're trying to do it again. Now we're got a good young team again. We're really excited about. We were ranked 8th in the country last year with 6
Nice.
freshmen in our starting lineup. And we're just
Do
really
you got one
excited.
of those McDonough boys?
The twins, both of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, duh, you got both of them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Clayton and
Clayton and
Bryce.
Bryce.
There we go.
They're tough.
They only lost like 4 or 5 times a piece in their careers in high school. It's
It's
crazy.
low numbers. And you know
Uh,
what college is like, right? So when you get to college, I think Clayton, and I could have this number wrong, but I think Clayton was a 4-time Iowa Place winner, 1-time finalist, and I think he was like 211 wins and maybe 8 losses, maybe I
mhm.
think that's what it was. And he lost. He was 32-11 for us this year as a freshman. So he lost more matches in 1 year of college than he did his whole high school career. And I was
Mhm.
worried about that, Josh, when he came in. Like, how's he going to take that if he lost some? And I'll tell you, it never affected him, not
That's
at all.
awesome.
His focus was continually getting better and trying to improve. And the other thing you worry about is if a guy has that many matches and he's won so much, are they going to evolve and continue to grow and develop? That was on my mind. And man, that was put to ease very early in the season. And those guys continue to evolve and get better, and they're going to keep getting better. We love the heck out of them, both of them. And we got some other really good freshmen too that we're excited about, and returners. Just got a good young
Mhm.
team right now. So
How
fun.
good of a feeling is that when you have a recruit that you notice that with that you're like that you because you don't know. I'm sure the majority of what you probably know about a recruit is just from the results. I'm guessing. But obviously you got have to. It takes time to know somebody personally,
Mhm.
and it's like how great of a feeling is that when you have one of these recruits and you learn that they're like that.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it
It's
is it
huge.
is it just kind of like, man, well, this is a bonus.
Well, yeah. I mean, and again, I kind of wrapping back to the camps here. Those guys were camp guys. They've been in our camp since they were in 7th grade. Sometimes twice a summer, they'd come to a team camp, and when we used to have an intensive training camp. So I got to interact with them multiple days in the summer and get a feel for who they are as people. Get to know their dad obviously well. Jay McDonough, great coach up there.
Central
Um,
Springs, is it?
Central Springs. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, I knew they were tough guys, and I knew they were, farm kids raised tough. And so I knew all that stuff was there. You just don't quite know until you get into the grind of a college season, like how are they going to be able to handle the losses that come and what's the ceiling going to be, right? That's the thing you
Mhm.
don't know. And but back to what you said, it's like, heck yeah, it's so exciting because the ceiling's high and
Mhm.
all they are is hungry. That's all it is. It's not, they don't get down with the losses. They just want to get better and get back out there and try to win the next match if they can. And probably a third of our roster are guys that we've had at camps over the years, and those
Yeah.
guys are really good guys for us because they already know what we're about by coming to our camps, and we know a lot about what they're about by knowing their coach for years and watching them wrestle at camps for years. And so I think it just fast tracks their ability to have success when they get here. And it's cool to have that opportunity to see them at camp first.
Man, and that actually speaks volumes for your program because if they grew up with your program, they all, like you said, they know what you guys are about,
They do.
and if they know what you're about and they're choosing you,
Yeah,
then
that's right. It's a good fit, right? It's a good fit.
yes,
Yeah, good.
yes, and they obviously feel like they know what they're getting into and they like it.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly it. Yeah,
that's so cool.
that is cool. Yeah, if we wouldn't have our camps, I don't know what that would do for Midwest recruiting because we're kind of up here, right? We're
Mhm.
up in the corner of the state. We're away from a lot of other places, and so the Iowa guys have to drive by a lot of other schools to get to us. Now it's a beautiful part of the state, and we've got a lot to offer in Decorah, but those camps are just really a huge part of the success of our program and always have been.
Mhm. Okay, so some of your other clinicians you got this year, you got
Yeah,
Felicity Taylor for the
we did.
girls.
Yep, Kekison,
Um,
you and I, right? I mean, gosh, isn't that guy? I love how he wrestles, don't you? Very,
Man, he's like he's really coming on, really coming on. I
he is.
mean,
Yeah.
he's a Wisconsin guy too, wasn't he?
Yep.
Coming into college. A
Yep.
lot of those Wisconsin guys, they don't get as much love as they deserve. I mean, they basically get credit for their Greco. I like good Greco wrestlers, but um, I love seeing a good Wisconsin wrestler come in and prove doubters wrong. And I don't really follow a whole lot of I've probably been on Flow Wrestling 10 times in my entire life, and that was just to watch Fargo when Brennan was up there or something. Um, I I don't really follow the high school rankings. I don't know how highly touted he was as a recruit.
Mhm.
I kind of make my own takes on that, but I don't know. It just kind of seemed like he's proven a lot of people wrong.
Yeah.
Not that there was really a whole lot of people doubting him, but just Wisconsin. I
Yeah.
feel like they only get respect, only they only get credit for some of their Greco and some of
Mhm.
their folk style wrestlers. I sometimes wonder if they've had some guys that could have succeeded at the D1 level that just never got a chance. You
Mhm.
know.
Coach O'Gara, obviously is from Wisconsin on my staff, and then Coach Hebner's from Wisconsin too. So I'm a little more in tune with Wisconsin, and they've got a pretty good pipeline going down to Missouri right now. Keegan O'Toole is a Wisconsin native too, and
Oh, is he?
he
I didn't
is,
know that.
he
Wow.
is, and that they're all Askren, right? Askren is is kind of having an
Mhm.
impact there in Wisconsin, and so there's
Yeah,
there's
they got cool accents too.
yeah
They're called pumpkins or pumpkins.
yeah.
Yeah, see, Loris is right across the bridge from
Yeah,
Wisconsin,
that's
so
exactly right. Well, they always have a spear in their hand. It's Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right.
it's it's and and it's not making fun of them. I think it's a really cool accent actually. I actually dated a girl from Wisconsin, and I wouldn't have. It was a cool accent.
Yeah,
Uh, but so there's you got Tanner Sloan. You got Tanner
yeah.
Sloan and Rocky Elam.
Rocky from Missouri, and big old brute, and yeah, those guys they're all good guys. We got some kind of bigger guys there that we're talking about. 84s, 97. Some of them were in the same bracket wrestling each other this year at the
Yeah,
NCAs.
it's
But
crazy.
yeah, I was down to
Yeah, I
Columbus.
think Sloan and Elam wrestled at least twice. I want to say they wrestled the finals at Big 12s or something, and maybe
Yeah,
at Sunrise at NCAAs or something.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. There,
Yeah,
there,
oops, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, and then Austin O'Connor from North
Oh,
Carolina.
that's right. That's right.
So that'd be cool, right? I mean, if he
Yeah,
got camp, and he's a Chicago guy
yeah,
originally, so he's an Illinois kid originally, and so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He
that
wrestled Nelson Brands in high school. I
did he?
remember that because my brother was at the same weight, and yeah, I remember he was one of the guys that beat him when Nelson was a junior or senior. He was the
Did
real deal.
I didn't know.
Um, yeah, and Elam, he was one of the all-time nicest guys I ever interviewed when I was working for the Predicament.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Really?
I probably interviewed a good 200 or 300 guys.
Wow!
They didn't come any nicer than Rocky Elam. Uh,
Wow! I didn't know that. Wow!
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He uh he acted like he was just thrilled that his team was getting some props. I don't think that they're really used to it.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're really used to having a media guy there that actually cared what they were doing. And I think it kind of took him by surprise and was like, "Hey, can I interview you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it just couldn't ask for a nicer guy. So I think you'll have you met him yet?
I haven't. There's a guy that's from Northeast Iowa that has strong Luther connections. That's a strength coach at Missouri, and a good friend of mine. And he used to be a strength coach at Iowa State when Kale and Heskett and those guys were down there, and Bobby Douglas was a coach. And anyway, long story. He's helped a lot of our guys get in the strength and conditioning industry, and now he's at Missouri. And so at the D1s, I talked with him, and
Hmm.
he was on the bus, at the D1s, traveling with the team back and forth in the hotel. And he's like, "You got Rocky coming up there?" He said, "You call me. I'll make sure he's there on time." It's fun talking with him. Good guy.
Nice.
Rourke Cutchlow is that guy's name. Real good guy. Rourke.
What's his name?
Rourke. Rohrk. Rourke Cutchlow. He's from Northeast Iowa
Feel
originally.
like I've seen him in the comments section a time or
You
two.
probably have. He's a bad dude. He's a great guy and a bad dude and loves his
Great
game.
guy, bad dude. My
Yeah,
favorite types of people.
I know. I know.
And Tanner Sloan, believe it or not, he and my brother Brennan were rivals all the way dating back to kindergarten. As in, they met in the semis at state, at kindergarten state, and yeah, and they had like a back and forth battle from like kindergarten through fourth grade, and he was then they became really good friends, and he's probably Brennan's favorite guy in his grade outside of Meepo, um, and it's been really cool for us to see all the success he's having because he deserves it. He's
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know great kid from a great family and athletic. I don't know why some of these I don't know why it's such a surprise to so many people to
yeah. But it
like what
was.
didn't you see before?
Yeah.
He
But
was
it was a surprise. I don't know what it was, like you're saying, but it was. Everybody says, "Man, where'd this guy come from?" And he was there right away, right immediately. His
mhm.
first year, when he was redshirt, and he was a stud, and
Yeah,
the
he
whole
tech Jacob Warner at Midlands.
right.
That was the first boom that I heard from him, and where did this kid come from? Like this kid's been around since kindergarten. Trust me.
You've been in the loop with him. You've been in the same foot with him. You knew in
Oh
kindergarten.
yeah, I know how good of a football player and how fast of a sprinter he is too. Um, and I'm a guy that, and I don't know if I'm wrong or right, and look how I look at this, but I'm a guy that if somebody has uh, the natural athletic skills that you can't coach, you just never know what kind of ceiling you can get out of those guys. And Sloan, I mean, he was. I think some of the knocks maybe on his recruiting resume out of high school is he didn't do enough summer wrestling or something. He didn't do enough summer, but it's not like he was at home. You know,
He's
eh,
farming, right? He's
right,
farming.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. He was. I think he was in. I don't know if he played baseball or not, but I believe he competed in state track. I could be wrong there, but I know he was two-time first team All State in football.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he something like led the entire regardless of class, he led the entire state in touchdowns and also led the entire state in sacks. I mean, so he was the
Really
most, yeah,
athletic.
yeah. I mean, he
Very.
could have played football in college.
Yeah, he could have. Oh,
And
actually,
so, like, why are you guys surprised that this guy's panning out? Like, duh.
right. Yeah. Oh,
But yeah, he'll be a good one, and he's always had such unique technique and stuff that I don't know if that he shows, but I know he's got a lot of unique technique that he's always used.
he'll be awesome.
He was one of these guys that had a really technical style in kindergarten. I'm not kidding you when I say that some kindergartners that you see anymore, they look like better than some of your average high school guys,
Right.
as far as the technique that they're capable of. And Sloan was that type, you know,
Wow.
slick takedown, armbar, pin. I mean,
Mhm.
perfect.
Well, in
And
college, at the D1s this year, physically he's not the biggest guy out there, right? But so
mm,
you're saying he's athletic and he's skilled, right? And he's a
right.
grinder, you can tell. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me that he'd be in that category.
Mm. All right. So, some people have asked some questions in the comments, so I'm
Sure.
going to go ahead and get to those. I do have like a little slideshow with just various topics that will spark all kinds of conversation.
Oh,
Um, but you're a popular dude. It might take a while to get through the comments. And
well,
for those of you watching, if you want to see more of these podcasts, you'll be more likely to see more of them if you send stars my way.
stars, more stars.
That's right.
I
Listen to
knew
Coach Dave Mitchell.
I
Don't listen to me. Don't take my word for it.
know.
But Mark Langrick says, is I keep wanting to ask this real quick. Is he Caden Langrick's dad from Waverly Shell Rock?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Eh, Yeah, Mark was a '90s wrestler, if I remember right.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No.
anyways, he says, Dave, good to see you.
Awesome. Great to see you.
Zach Walrod, he was in my club as a little kid. Says,
Okay.
admirable man right there. He said, do you know Zach?
So Zach is Rourke Cutchlow connection again. So Zach
Okay.
went into strength and conditioning. He's a strength and conditioning coach at University of Iowa. The last time I spoke with him, it was baseball and I think volleyball he was working with, if I remember correctly. And
Hmm.
he did some of his graduate work with Rourke Cutchlow at the time.
Wow.
So Rourke has helped a lot of our guys. But Zach's an awesome guy from Missouri, great family, and just a great guy. He's got a great young family now.
And trained in the Mark Swafford Youth Wrestling, well, the Burlington Wrestling Club is what
Really?
it was called. Yeah, yeah, he was with my dad and a guy named Mike Sayre. He wrestled at Waldorf, but he was in their youth club. He was practice partners with my brother for at
Crazy.
least three. Yeah, yeah, at least 3 years, and I think he moved away or
Yeah, Nevada, Missouri is where they went to.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I always like wondered what happened to him, and I was just always fearful that he quit because he
Yeah,
was talented as hell.
yeah, very
Yeah,
athletic. Yeah, and he went to a community college in Kansas a couple of years, and then came to Luther for a couple of years. Great guy.
cool. Yeah, he's one of the guys that I've been really excited to touch base with again since starting this thing. I can't believe some of the people that I never thought I'd see again or hear from again. That
I bet.
yeah, that's been
Must be
probably
real
the coolest
quiet.
thing about this entire experience.
I bet.
But Mark Langrick again says Riceville has coaches all over: Cresco, Walk On, Wapsie Valley, and many more.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Minnesota too, and yeah, again, that's a tribute to Dave Ripley and just the lineage of how he did things. And I think it's a true honor when when guys go out and coach that they've coached. And so I know Dave is proud of those guys that went out and coached after he did, and he helped coaches. A lot of people might not know this. Of course, this guy does, but Jim Miller did his student teaching at Riceville and coached at Riceville for
Really?
about every year. Yeah. And so Dave and Jim have a tight relationship. They're close. I think they have a lot of mutual respect for each other.
And isn't Riceville like one of the smallest 1A schools too?
It's got to be now. It wasn't big then either, but yeah, it's smaller now, but it's grown again. Actually, it's coming back, which is exciting to see.
So impressive that a tiny community can produce so much.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
There's something there, isn't it? I mean, there's something
yeah,
good
yeah.
things that can make that happen. Yeah.
That's neat. And is it located? I think I drove through there. Had a scare about a decade ago to where I had to go to Rochester, Minnesota. If you can connect the dots there, and I think I went through Riceville on the way there. I know I went through New Hampton.
Okay. You were
Is
probably just off from Riceville, but not far, within 20 miles or so, probably, because you're probably on Highway 63 heading to Rochester, most likely, and Riceville's west of there, another 20 miles or so, I'd say, maybe.
cool.
But yeah, great, great.
Cool. Yeah, this is like about the part of the state where people start sounding like they're from Minnesota.
You know, it's interesting. My wife is from Minnesota, and my couple of my kids, actually three of my children, live in Minnesota now. So when I get up to the cities of North, talk about accents, I can tell, right? I can definitely tell an accent,
Hmm.
but I can't really tell that I have an accent or the people from Riceville do. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend's from Fort Madison, but her family is from Minnesota.
Okay.
Somehow she sounds like a Southerner. I,
Well,
maybe the Fort Madison, they're like, they're south of us about 30 miles, but I don't. Somehow she sounds like she's from the South, but her family's from Minnesota.
yeah.
So it's
Okay.
how that
He
happened.
sounded like a Southerner. Zach Walrod, he was from Missouri, in Burlington, and I thought Wally sounded like a Southerner to me too. So yeah,
She was in Zach Walred's class.
really.
Yeah, and like small, like that's a crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the same, and they were actually there's this little suburb of Fort Madison called Denmark,
Yeah.
which they all go to Fort Madison High School, but in elementary school they go to Denmark. And Melissa and Zach were in the same class at the same tiny little Denmark school.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's crazy. Had an
so
old
yeah,
American from Fort Madison, Dakota Gray, who lives up here still.
yes,
It's like
yes,
he might have had a Denmark address. I'm not positive about that, but he might have.
he did. I believe he did either uh, Denmark or West Point. I want to say it's Denmark though.
Not
I've been to
positive.
I've been to their house before because I'm really good friends with his cousins.
Okay, yeah,
Dude, you did a great job with him.
he's a
He was
stud.
really talented before going to Luther, but when he went to Luther, I
He's
mean, he shot up a level.
he's a stud.
And
Yeah,
oh yeah, and he
yeah.
was in that bracket. Oh, that bracket that had like no, that was when he was in eighth grade. He was in that bracket that had Corey Clark and Thomas Gilman. But he
He-
was in all kinds of tough brackets in high school too.
yeah,
And I love that family, the Gray family.
yeah, I do too.
Did you get Lane Gray too?
We recruited Lane, but we did not get him. No, he went. Did he go to a community college? Did he wrestle at a community college? I think he did for a couple of years at a community college. I just can't remember where right offhand. But yeah,
Hmm.
great family.
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot all about. God, I should have written that down.
Yeah, he still lives up
Yeah.
here. He's in Decorah and coaches at Southwind High School, and then runs Outlaw Wrestling Club as well.
Well, they're in good hands.
Yeah,
He knows what he's doing.
yeah, he does.
Rob Anderson says, "I've asked this question to Dave before, and maybe he'll finally answer. Who wins in a match with former teammate John McGovern? I'll
Who
ref it.
wins?
He's
John.
asking who wins, and he's also
John
saying that
wins
if it
every day,
happens,
all day. John wins now. He would have won in 1993 when we were in the 1992. We were in the same bracket at the NCAA tournament. He was at Central. I was at UW Lacrosse.
mhm.
We were best friends growing up. My wife is John McGovern's first cousin. I met my wife through John. I owe him
Wow,
everything. And then when he graduated with Central in 4 years, I had another year of eligibility at Lacrosse. He came to Lacrosse as a GA, and he was in my corner at the national tournament my senior year when I was third in the country. So he was a stud. And if we wrestle, he wins then, he wins now. I put that question to that, Rob. That's for sure.
he's an intense guy. I remember I was at Loris when he came in as a coach at UD, and I remember the UD team before him, and I remember what they were like after him.
Yeah.
Before he came in, I remember seeing that UD team at tournaments, and I'm not trying to talk bad on him, but they wouldn't seem like they had much energy. They didn't really act like they wanted to be there. I remember pinning a UD guy in 10 seconds, literally in a college open one time, and didn't even seem like he cared.
Right.
Then John McGovern comes in, and the first season that he's with those guys, we're seeing these guys out, and they're ready to beat some ass. Like
Yeah.
they're ready to go, and we go to these opens, and these same guys that didn't look like they cared. I mean, they're either. I mean, totally intense. There was this one guy. I want to say his name was Cole something. I mean, he would hit himself before.
Yeah. He was
Uh,
tough. 65 pounder. 65 pounder. He was tough. He was good.
yes,
He was
yeah,
light.
65 pounder, exactly.
He was tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, John's got it going again now too. I mean, they had a couple of Ohio State transfers from Wisconsin originally that came in this year. That were all Americans, and Dennis Hall is there coaching with him now. And
Mhm.
John does a great job. He's got it all in perspective.
Turned it around just like that. I
He
mean,
did.
just
He cares about kids, and he's got a good big picture. I think overall, and they're going to be tough. He's coming back again here too, which is good.
awesome, awesome, good stuff.
We've had some great duels over the years. That's the one shitty part. Sorry, the bad part
That's
is
okay.
that we're good buddies from high school. The worst part is having to, when we wrestle each other is, in dual meets. It's great and it's horrible at the same time.
Because you don't want him to lose. You
Yeah.
know.
And honestly, and I can honestly say this, and I tell them this when they beat us, I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, feel so happy for him when they beat us. Obviously, I'm disappointed for us and for our guys, but it's like, man, you did good. You beat us, man. You did good by beating us, and I think he feels the same way when we win too. So it's funny how the competitiveness is an important part of who you are, but you also can truly appreciate the successes of other people along the way, which is cool.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Darren Svensson says, "Awesome Zoom background, Coach Mitchell." It's pretty cool.
That's a real Darren. That's not a background. That's a real deal right there. That's my wall, Darren.
How
Right
many how
now.
many points is that? Like
And
a
they're not that big, not that
oh,
good. They shot them with both. One is a 9, and the other one's a 10, and they're okay. There's bigger ones around here. I just need to get on top of one sometime.
yeah, yeah. I've never actually been hunting. I'm always too busy fishing. But
Yeah.
we've actually got some pretty decent hunting ground at our place.
Yes, you do
Um,
down in that area in
Man,
general.
my PMs are going to be blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not using it. I'm
Yeah.
too busy fishing.
Yeah.
Just
Darren's a great guy.
something
Darren,
about not knowing what it is before you get it. Just I don't know that I just not seeing it before I just that's just where my heart is.
it is.
Um,
It is exciting. Yeah, it's fun. Fishing's awesome.
I dude, I caught eight bass in 30 minutes this morning.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
my first time out this year. Crazy.
In what, river or pond or where?
It was my dad's pond,
Yeah. Good.
but
Great.
but yeah, it was a good little good little confidence booster.
We have one of our current wrestlers, a heavyweight from Minnesota, that's doing an internship with the trout hatchery, the DNR here in
Hmm.
Decorah, and so it's been fun talking with him. They're shocking ponds, they're shocking rivers, they're shocking streams, and so seeing what's in there and learning about all that, he's learning a lot, and I'm learning from him.
Oh, I would love to see that.
It's cool as heck. It's
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah, he's having a great experience.
yeah. Johnny Johnson, I love this guy. Man, this guy's done a lot for the sport. Says
Yeah,
Luther Team Camp is the best.
yeah. Thanks,
Always
Johnny.
positive, Johnny Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, back in the day, his son was at camp. Back in the day, which is cool.
Doug Engel, great coach and great guy.
Oh yeah, Doug. Yeah, good seeing you, Doug.
Mark Lengrick says Jeff O'Gara is a good dude. Served his country with me.
Yeah, that's right. They were in the reserves here in Decorah together. Yeah.
Ross, yeah, Ross Patton. He was in my dad and Zach Walrod. He was in our club. He was one of my partners in youth. Says great coach and great program. Do you remember him? He wrestled for Central.
I know
Um,
the name. I just can't picture what weight would have he been roughly, Josh?
57, 65.
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he was
Mm.
tough too.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. He got a lot better in college actually.
yeah.
I'll never forget it. One of our practice partners that used to beat him pretty bad in youth and all through high school. I won't say his name, but
Yep.
Ross beat him. Ross beat him in an open at in college. That had to have just been the best win ever for him.
Yeah, it does. It does, doesn't it? Yeah, to beat
Yeah.
those guys will always beat you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing like with our guys all the time, when they come in and they start beating state champs and they weren't state champs themselves, maybe not place winners, maybe not even qualifiers. You just I expect it. As an athlete coming out of high school, you kind of have this pecking order in your mind of where maybe things are. I think that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
natural thing. But for me, man, I expect it. When guys come in now, guys develop at different levels, and we definitely are a developmental program. And so, part of it, what we do early on, Josh is try to convince them, hey, man, we expect you to beat those guys. You should expect to beat those guys. We're
Mm-hmm.
training at a high level. And they do a lot of times, and they come around. But that's fun when that happens.
That's the best way to go about it too, because sometimes all a guy needs is just somebody believing in him.
Yeah, or
You know.
themselves, yeah, believing in themselves. But yeah, my college coach in college, Greg Lonning, who's a walk-on native, one of the top coaches in the country at any level, top 2 or 3% of coaches at any level. I really believe that. He believed in me way before I believed in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that over and over again, then you start to think, okay, man, this is what he's saying. I trust him with everything else. I guess I am at that level. Whether you were or you weren't, you believed
Mm-hmm.
you were, which is cool.
Oh yeah. Johnny Johnson says Randy Stewart has it rolling at Sonoraville High School in Calhoun, Georgia. He does. He does. Real happy for all the success he's had down there.
Is he still
Um,
going? Is he still coaching, Josh, down there right
I
now?
thought that he retired.
Getting close at least. I knew I watched a
Mm,
YouTube video a couple years ago at a coaching clinic that he was at, and I wasn't sure if he was still coaching or not. But if you talk to him, tell him hi for me.
okay. Yeah, he's like the Georgia version of like Bob Dara.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
see Brent Blazer, Derek Stork.
Yeah, so Derek Stork also is that lineage of Rourke Cutchlow in terms of strength and conditioning. And Derek is at Missouri now. He was at App State as a strength coach over there. He's from Atlantic originally, state placement at Atlantic. Went to Iowa State first, then transferred to Luther and had a great go here. And just a great, great guy, great family. Younger brother Levi that wrestled down at Grandview, and just a really great guy.
Awesome. Awesome. Johnny Johnson says Coach Mitchell had 10 top 10 NCAA finishes in 11 years from 2001 till 2010 and 8 top 6 finishes in 9 years from 2001 till 2008.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Numbers
What
don't
I care
lie.
about is what I care about is next year. Let's get back to
That's
next year.
right.
We're on the
That's
path.
right.
Path.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Zach Walrod says Cutchlow, laughy
Yeah.
face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brent Blazer is another Luther guy at Mizzou.
Yeah. Yeah. Derek Stork is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So is this, this is how little I know about Facebook, Josh. I'm sorry, but was this be
It's all good.
recorded? Can I send this to Rourke
Yes,
after?
yes,
Okay,
yes. This
that's
whole thing will be recorded. It's going straight to YouTube also.
awesome.
It's actually streaming to YouTube and Facebook at the same time.
Cool. I'm going to make him pay me. I'm going to make Rourke pay me every time I said his name in this broadcast.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, kind of pretty handy dandy. I can't believe I actually was able to figure that out because I'm one of the most technologically uh, not skilled people I can technologically not inclined people that I will ever find, and somehow I've gotten this figured out to where we're on YouTube and Facebook.
You're
Uh,
landscaping master during the day and technology master.
More like a gopher. My dad's the guy. I could have a really good idea, and he won't even listen to it, but I think that just kind of comes with the territory of he did it for way longer than I did. I only did it for a couple summers in high school,
Yeah,
but anyways, I hope to figure out the field someday, but
you
I
will.
hope so.
Yeah.
Which one was this? Oh, whoops. Here we go. This is a good one right here. Keely Lawning says, "Hi Mitch, nice shirt, Rico Swaff. Is this recorded? Missed the beginning. Thought it was at 8.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my bad. That's because last week's was scheduled at 8, and what I did was I bumped the post from last week,
Okay.
and at the top I wrote this one's at 7:30, but in the actual article it says that it's at 8. So
I messed,
I'd like to thank Keely for reading the article instead of you know.
I messed that up last week though, dude. So I thought we were doing a
No, it's all good.
recorded video. I didn't know it was a live video. And I was out, as I told you, kayaking, fishing with our heavyweight. And then we went way further than I thought. And that river, you never know how long it's going to take. And oh man, we didn't get out of the water until dark that night. We were out for like 7 hours in a kayak. Never got out,
Nice.
not once. It's crazy.
I
But
know how it goes, man. I live a mile away from the Mississippi, so
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yeah, I've had plenty of those. Yeah, it was 100% cool with me. To be honest with you, I wasn't feeling it that day really because I last week is my first week getting back into work, and to be honest with you, it's the most out of shape my life I've ever been. Because I was pretty active in my last job, and I quit that 8 or 9 months ago, and I spent basically most of last week trying not to pass out.
yeah.
so so I just wasn't feeling it last week anyways. I was a little, I feel a lot better today than I did if we would have done it last week. So yeah, it's all good. And not to mention I understand. Uh,
But Keely is my coach, Greg. Sadly, passed away of a brain aneurysm last year. Super fit, great coach. And Keely's his wife, and their daughter Moran got married on Memorial Day weekend down in Des Moines. So I was able to make that wedding, which was awesome, a lot of fun. She's a
mhm.
Luther grad and husband is too. So good to see you, Keely.
uh, Johnny says also a great man behind the screen at Luther Coach at Amdahl. Would that be Evan?
Uh, Dave Amdahl
Okay.
is a local high school coach here that does a lot of our webcasting. So Dave
Okay.
Anderson, Dave Amdahl does our webcasting. Darren Svensson had jumped in here a little bit ago, and Darren continues to have a huge impact on our program. He's involved in the media, has done a lot of interviews that we posted for years. When he was full time at Luther, now he's back in the area again, working with us some more again. But yeah, great guys, all great guys.
Awesome. Craig Bonsack, watching from Viva Las Vegas, my friend. Keep up the good work. Just hit a jackpot. Bam. Hey, you see what you see the season that his nephew Braden Bonsack had from Union Laporte City. He
Oh,
well he was JV behind Jace Hedeman last year when he was a freshman. Because they well no he wasn't JV. Jeez. He was like 100 some pounds wrestling 113 and he placed eighth. But the reason he wasn't at 106 was because Jace Hedeman, who's now an undefeated two-timer,
yeah, yeah,
that's where he was at. And
yeah.
then this year, Braden Bonsack made it down to 106, and he won state. So
Wow.
and then and Jace, they were 1-2 punch, 106, 113, both state champs.
Tough, very
But
tough.
yeah, Craig was really really good in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
He's one of these guys that was able to beat almost anybody, but I don't remember who he had first round. It was something like Barry Davis, like first round at state, and they didn't give wrestlebacks.
Jeez,
I don't
yeah.
remember if it was Gibbons or Davis. Somebody just crazy good, and it's like if he would have had anybody else in the bracket, he would have
Right,
beaten them, but he
right.
didn't get a chance to wrestle back. I,
That's tough.
those old school bracketing rules were barbaric.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
I always wonder, like some of the guys. I always wonder who some of the guys were that would have wrestled back for third had they been given a chance.
right. That's exactly
But
right. And then remember the Russellbacks for third were all like pretty much in one day, weren't they? If I remember correctly, it'd be like Saturday morning. You'd find
yeah,
out Friday night if you had one, and then you wrestled all those matches on Saturday. And I remember I think he was wrestling heavyweight. He wrestled some at super heavyweight too. His name is Steve Eastman. I think it was in probably 1987, roughly. And he got a wrestle back, and I think he lost first round match. He had a wrestle back and wrestled all the way back and got third that on Saturday morning. Those guys are tough, back to
mhm,
back, back to back like that.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad they came to their senses with those bracketing.
Yeah,
I think it bothers like my dad, their uncles, my uncles to this day. Because
yeah,
they lost first or second round and they
right,
were done. And it's
right.
just those guys are probably asking questions about what if, and you
Mhm.
can't blame them. You can't,
No,
you
yeah,
know.
no, for sure not. Yeah, no doubt.
Mark Langert says the Langert boys from Turkey Valley have ties to Riceville. My uncle Rich Lincolnmeyer was a state champ from Riceville.
Probably, at least in my perspective, remember now I graduated in 88. So in 1980, when Rich won the state title, that was before technical falls existed. So you could rack up 30, 40 points in a match. And Rich was one of those kinds of guys. He was
Mm-hmm.
down. He would take a guy down, let him up before that was, a real popular thing. Take him down, let
Mm-hmm.
him up, take him down, let him up. And he would put up points like no other. And, and so growing up, Rich was definitely one of the premier guys that I looked up to in our school. Mark Schwab wasn't too far away, and I had a lot of respect from a distance seeing what he was doing. And I was nowhere near those guys' levels at all, and never got to those guys' levels. But I remember idolizing those guys and how
Mm-hmm.
athletic they were and how aggressive they were. And Rich, if he was
Their positioning is pristine.
it was. Yeah. Rich was a wrestling guy through and through. And if he'd have wrestled in college, he'd have been a stud there too.
Mm-hmm. The
Big
80s wrestling, 80s is my favorite decade of Iowa high school wrestling. Now that I've seen them all,
time.
um, I've seen every finals match that's been recorded from 81 all, until present.
Awesome.
Hands down, my favorite era to watch is the 80s. Those
How'd you get
guys
access
threw.
to all that stuff? How'd you get
What's
all
that?
How'd you get access to all those videos?
When I started the Pin Doctors, I just was putting the word out, hey, like, hey, if you guys have VCR tapes out there, we've been looking for them for years, decades. People have been trying to get them from IPTV to no avail. I know how to convert them, so if you want to send them to me, I'll convert them. And it's probably one of the things that and I'm not proud of much, to be honest with you, but I am proud of this. I'm proud that I will always be the guy that got every state finals match converted from 1981 through 2005.
That is awesome. That is
It
huge.
means a lot to me because I know how much it means to, a lot of people, there were probably a lot of people that saw their finals matches that were in a dark phase of their life or something, and that,
Right.
made them happier.
Right. Dang
You
right.
know?
Dang right. And not only them, their kids, the brothers and sisters, that we're so proud of them when they won it.
Mm.
Now getting to relive that and see
Yes.
it again, and their kids that never got to see it now. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
yeah,
really glad. I'm really glad that I was able to pull that off.
yeah, yeah,
Surprised myself on that one.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the '80s, Mark Schwab, Dan Knight,
yeah,
Tim Krieger.
yeah. Tim, stud.
Woo! That's a guy that would score like 50 points in one match, like
He
you're
was,
saying.
yeah, he was stud. He was coaching at University of St. Thomas, which was a Division III school when I was wrestling. So in the
Oh,
early '90s, he was coaching at St. Thomas, and they had some studs there. I remember, oh, it might have been '95 or '96. I remember they had two finalists, I think, from St. Thomas. They dropped the program a few years later, but he had some studs that he was coaching then too. So he was a great competitor, but also had good guys wrestling for him.
awesome. I actually met Mark Schwab for the first time ever. Met with him at a Starbucks a month or so ago.
Cool.
Um, like one of the greatest people I've ever met.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
he reminds me of like Bruce Lee or something, or
yeah,
like a sensei.
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
how he thinks about the sport too, right? And the
Hmm.
mental aspect of it. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's a cool guy. He's got a lot of great things to offer the sport. Always
And,
has.
yeah, and he's very humble about it. Very
Mhm.
humble and respectful to other guys haven't. 99.9% of guys haven't accomplished as much as Mark Schwab. I think that's fair to say,
Yeah,
and he'll be the last person to judge somebody for that.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
true. Yeah, appreciates them for who they are, right? Yeah,
You're right.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Johnny says, "Oh, I'm sorry."
I was just going to say back to the video thing. So I'm the youngest of 8 kids in our family, and there's a 15-year span between my oldest brother and myself. And my oldest brother in 1973 was Riceville's first wrestling state champion. Okay,
And who was that?
Jim Mitchell was his name,
Okay.
and he never won a tournament until the high school state wrestling tournament. Never won a tournament in high school at all. He got third at districts his junior and senior year, but his senior year they took third at districts to state, and there was a guy that he could never beat, and that guy got beat, and he beat the kid that beat him in the state finals, which was
Styles
cool.
make matches.
Yeah, it is. But back to that idea of if I could have watched his match, I've never seen his matches, right? So like that's 73. But as a younger brother, even at this point in my life, if I could watch those matches, because I know what impact that had on my life, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Probably.
Mm,
If I didn't have an older brother that was a legend icon that had, blazed a path that nobody had blazed before in Riceville. And that just, I remember having clippings in the newspaper and those old
yeah.
tall file cabinets you pull out of, that state championship that you're looking at. So those things matter. So it's really cool that you got those matches for those
Do you
families.
know if video exists for him?
I have no
Because
idea.
if so, I'll try and find it.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
uh, I I declare myself the Indiana Jones of wrestling.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I would love it, man. I would pay good dollar for that. I would love to see it. It was probably a boring match because he didn't do a lot, but he was tough. It
It's still cool to see though.
was a great story.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate this. So at the time, Riceville Rip was the head coach, and the assistant coach in Riceville in 1973 was a college basketball player. Like there was no other
Okay.
coaches around, and so he went to the state tournament. And my brother Jim, we had 8 kids. So my mom and dad went to the state tournament, but the rest of us kids were back home, and we didn't even know what the state tournament was. And and I remember Jim telling the story that this assistant basketball coach, after Jim won his first match, he's like, Jim, how do you want to do down here? And Jim was kind of a matter of fact guy. He's like, Coach Markham, I'd kind of like to win it. And without missing a beat, Coach Markham said, but seriously, Jim, how do you really want to do down here? Because he had never won a tournament, right? He'd never
Mhm.
won a tournament. He got third in districts.
Yeah.
What do you do, Jim? Well, I'd kind of like to win it. But seriously, Jim, how do you really want to do it? It's
Yeah.
kind of,
I don't know. Yeah. Gosh, I gotta say, if I were coach, I'd be like, rock on, let's do it,
yeah,
let's do it.
that's right.
But then again, you can't blame the coach for thinking that it was outside the lines of like being realistic because he hadn't
Realistic,
won a
right?
tournament.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
But man, sometimes all it takes is the right attitude at the right time and just the
yeah,
right, you know.
yeah. And Markham was a great guy. He, was supportive of him, but it was just, it's kind of a funny story.
So you were 15 years younger than your oldest brother,
Yep. Yeah, there are 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls.
dude. So I'm with my family. It's four boys, and I'm the oldest, and my younger brother Brennan is 16 years younger than me. So it's kind of the same thing.
It
Grew up in
is.
kind of a similar family.
Pretty big fan.
Um, what was it like being on the younger side? I know what it's like being on the older side. I'm the one that my parents made all the mistakes with.
Yeah.
Um,
They were hard on you too, I'm sure.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Were you able to learn from a lot of your
Yeah.
siblings' mistakes and stuff? Or
Yes. Yeah, I was lucky. I was very lucky. Being the youngest, I'm sure it was way better than being the oldest because that was, it was definitely, and when you have 8 kids around, when there's only one left at home, they kind of appreciate you.
yeah,
At that point. So it was, it was good. And my mom passed away when I was 8 years old. So my older siblings really, and my dad obviously raised me. And so they were phenomenal. They were great.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So your older siblings are probably like a second, like a
Yeah.
parent to you. And that's
Yeah.
how I was with. It's kind of like a brother father hybrid,
Yeah.
with the younger two.
Yeah. I bet it is. Yeah.
All right. Johnny Johnson says Coach Mitchell had 10 top 10. And oh, I already went to that one.
Yeah.
Joel James Marsden says Riceville connection. You rock, Dave.
Yeah. Joel, that's great. Yeah. Great guy.
Holy cow. You still got comments coming. Brent Blazer says, how's the team looking next year, Coach Mitch?
It's exciting. We're have good, good. We got this RTC going here now, and so we got some guys that qualify for that are training, and it's just a good group. We had a 25 pounder from Illinois that was a camp kid whose coach was a Luther alum that had a very good freshman year. He was 23-8 last year, and I like him a lot. He has a very high ceiling. He beat that Webster City kid that was a couple times state champ that went to Iowa State. Fam something, I think his name was.
Okay.
Um, he's tough. I'm really excited about him. And then obviously, the twins. We've got two really good heavyweights. I talked about the kid that's here this summer doing an internship, but we have a state finalist from Wisconsin that was ranked 5th in the country most of the year last year as well.
Okay.
Just a really good young team. We're excited about it.
Awesome. Cole Erickson checked in. He's a Mediapolis guy.
Love it.
His father's like Mufasa. He's our first Mediapolis' first ever state wrestling champion.
Awesome.
And Cole Erickson's one of the best wrestlers that ever went through that room. I mean,
Saying
he
something, man.
what's that?
That's saying something.
Yeah, oh yeah, dude, like he was able to beat guys that were ranked number one in the nation. I mean, and he was practice partners with Drew Foster his entire life, and I mean those two neck and neck that entire time. But he says D3 American River Conference, love the exposure.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
he's awesome. He was tough, very tough. I don't think we ever beat him that I remember when our guys are wrestling against him.
have to wrestle really tough to beat Cole Erickson. He's just so I don't know, never gets out of position.
Yeah,
He's
win hard,
offensive. Yeah.
win hard. Yeah, grinder. I like the way he wrestles.
Johnny Johnson would like to give a shout out to Davis Johnson.
Yeah. So Davis was the head coach here at Luther when I came, and again, sadly passed away here a couple of years ago. But great coach. Was in Makokata is where he coached. He was an All-American at Luther back in the '60s. He's a Decorah native. Went to coach at Makokata High School. Had a good career there. Then came up to Luther and coached for I don't know the length period, maybe 10 or 12 years, somewhere in that range, and had some studs here in the late 80s and early 90s. A guy by the name of Tom Fye that was an NCAA runner up, a guy by the name of Dean Bolte that was an NCAA runner up. Tom was from Cresco, Bolte was from Cedar Falls. Heath Grimm, the head coach at Upper Iowa, two-time All-American under Davis. The Score family, Alex Score and Nate Score, were from Albert Lee. They were both All-Americans at Luther under Davis and lots of others. He just had a really great run here. And when I came in as an assistant for 1 year, he really let me, do what I wanted to, while giving great guidance too. And it was fun. I mean, he was just a really great person. And then the next year, decided to be a superintendent in the area, or a principal actually in the area, and then I took over as head coach. But a great mentor and a great friend, and his wife Shirley here in town still, and we miss Davis.
Nice. Has anybody ever told you that you've got a great wrestling memory? And this is coming from a guy that has people say that to.
I can forget a lot. There's probably a lot I'm forgetting too, but yeah.
Man, props on that.
Thanks.
And it's one of those deals. Like I have people ask me all the time, "How do you remember that stuff?" And first thing that always goes through my mind is, "How do you forget it?"
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I can't remember
If I could only remembered my physics, my physics, my physics homework as well as I did wrestling, I guess, then be a little bit better spot right now. But I'm having a lot more fun though. I'm sure right
right.
now.
Yeah. Worse
Fr-
yet is I can't remember what I'm supposed to get from the grocery store when I come home,
yeah,
or where I park my damn car in the parking
yeah.
lot, stuff like that.
I always forget to shut the door. I always forget to shut lights. Silly stuff. Brett Stender says, "What's up, Coach Mitchell?
Done.
What are some of your most memorable matches by kids you coached? P.S. You have a face for radio. You do, though. You do, man. You do. I'm envious.
So Brett was a stud, man. He's from North Scott, and we were lucky to get him to Luther. He played football and wrestled at Luther. He was again in one of those early recruiting classes, and his brother Sean went to
Sean.
UNI. Yeah, was a finalist at UNI, and Brett was a stud. And I've got a lot of great stories about Brett. Brett was a stud, but also just a lot of fun to be around, and a really great guy.
That's what Sean's like, too.
Yeah, Sean's the exact same. Yeah, Brett's maybe a little shyer. So then when he says something, he's always got a snappy comment and like it really catch you off guard, and you just laugh off because of it. And one was at a match. He was a giant. He was like 6'5". His senior year, he was like 270. I mean, he had a great physique for a college heavyweight. He moved very well. And I remember one time, maybe a sophomore year, he came off the mat. He'd beat a really good kid, a national qualifier, and he came off the mat. And I had to look up at him. I'm looking up at him, and I'm patting him on the back, and I'm like, right when he came off the mat, I'm like, Brett, that was freaking great. Whatever you did to get ready for that match, we need to do that all the time, because sometimes he'd have matches that he wasn't as intense, right? But he had a great match. And he was still breathing as he's coming off, and he didn't miss a beat. And he's like, Coach, it was easy. I just pictured your head on that guy's body. The whole pitch just started dying laughing. It was just funny.
It's awesome. It's like, okay, we'll do that every time from here on out then.
Exactly. That's right. Picture my head on your body.
It almost reminds me of like Waterboy.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. But these guys like Brett, I miss seeing, like I love that guy. And a lot of guys, you coach, you don't get a chance to see him as often. And great to get from him.
Kirk Davis says, Coach Mitchell, great dude.
Thanks, man. How you doing? I wonder what Kirk's up to now. I don't even know what he's up to now. Hope he's doing good. That camp over the years.
Right on. So I've got a slideshow actually. This will bring up all kinds of conversation, I'm sure. We'll get to the comments again. For those of you listening, please send Facebook stars so I can. I'm out of jokes for that, but send Facebook stars my way. I don't like panhandling for them, so just know that I earned them because I don't like doing that. All right, so and also so Facebook stars, and if you're listening out there, feel free to chime in the comments and ask Dave Mitchell a question about wrestling or whatever. I'm sure he'd be glad to answer them for you.
Mhm.
But first off, we're going to go to a slideshow type thingamajig that I put together. I got to remember to, yeah, there we go. I don't know which one to start with. Actually, I'll start with this one right here.
Speaking of which, Brent Blaser made a couple comments there. He's an Osage native that wrestled out Luther, man. It's good to hear from him too. I haven't talked to him here lately.
All right. So, who is that guy?
Greg Lonning, yeah, what a mentor, what a coach. Like I mentioned earlier, top 2 or 3% of coaches in the country at any level. I really
Hmm.
believe that, and we're really fortunate to have had the opportunity to have been a part of his life. And he's a godfather of our youngest child, and
Oh, wow.
he's a great, great man. Lived by a great moral standard, and also amazing passion for the sport of wrestling, and just a really great motivator. I think the mental part of wrestling, he was as good as they get. I mean, he was
Hmm.
right there with, I don't know Dan Gable well. I've met him, but you just keep hearing about Dan Gable and the ability he had to push the right buttons at the right time. And I just always think of Greg Lonnie with that too. He's just really great.
Hey, you've been blessed with some good role models, and
Haven't I though? I mean, that's so lucky, right? So lucky
yeah,
to
yeah, you got
have
him, and yeah, and Ripley, and
yeah, and
wow.
totally different. Like what they were good at was that and Dave was great and motivating too, but they were so different as coaches. And I was blessed to have two great coaches and what they did. And I think what it opened me up to, Josh, and what I try to share
Hmm.
with people to get into coaching now, it's like as a wrestler, there's a lot of ways you can win as a wrestler. Not
Hmm.
everybody has the same style. It's not the same strengths. It's not the same things that they do well. And I think coaching is a little bit that way too. There's a lot
Definitely.
of ways you can be an effective coach. You have to coach within your personality, who you are as a person, and what your strengths are. I think, and you can.
Hmm. And the more you're able to diversify your coaching skill set, the better.
Yeah,
The way the more inclined you'll be to reach every different personality that comes into your room.
that's right. And have a diverse coaching staff that has that ability. Right, lots of different
Definitely.
coaches that have different viewpoints on the sport and different backgrounds. That helps too.
Hmm. Yes, it's always really important for a program to succeed. It's very important that they find coaches like a head coach and an assistant coach that complements them.
That's right.
Sometimes I've seen combos of two great coaches together, but it doesn't work out because they just don't
Right.
complement each other well. But
Right.
the programs that get it right they usually consist of a staff that just work well together. You
Yeah.
know.
When I hired Coach O'Gara, I honestly lucked off in getting him as well. He was a 118-pound national champion. I called Coach Line, and he won a title for Coach Line. I called Coach Line. I said, Greg, I'd like to hire Jeff as assistant coach. And Greg said, Mitch, I just don't think that's the right choice for him right now. I think he should stay around here at lacrosse for a little bit. And I got off the phone thinking, oh my gosh, that was the only guy I had that I even thought maybe I could hire. And so then I thought, okay, who could we get? And within a day, Greg called me back. He said, Mitch, you're right. He should come down there and coach with you, and he did. Right. So what Greg said, we did. Period. Because he was such a great mentor. So Coach O'Gara came down here. What I didn't know at the time was how we would complement each other so well, right? That we have different views of the world, but yet we have an amazing respect. We're like brothers. I love him and he loves me, and but yet we see the world very differently. And I think everybody that wrestled for us would say the same thing. It's like those two guys are you couldn't find two guys that are more different, but yet have an amazing respect for each other and have a lot of similarities on the things that really matter in terms of work ethic and how we approach the sport. And so you're right. I think, being really, really lucky with that. And then just quickly back to Greg Lonning. So when we were at lacrosse, Greg had a set of twins, yeah, a boy and a girl. Guess what he named them? He named the boy Gable and he named the girl Gara,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Right. So
Yeah.
that was the impact that Dan
Jeff,
Gable and Jeff O'Gara had on Greg's life too, and Keely's life. So pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, pretty cool.
Awesome. Man, what a pat on the back that is.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
all right, I'll go to the next one. Okay, and this next one, actually, let me. Okay, stop screen, present. In this next one, it's going to be a podium shot of an AAU podium shot, and I'm going to see if you can pick out the guy on the podium that you would end up coaching a few years later, and
Okay.
then we'll discuss him.
Okay.
And I'm on this podium too.
Oh, that's awesome.
All
If I can see it. Oh man, I don't know if I can see.
right, well, which
You
one of
see?
those guys did you coach?
Oh my gosh, I can't see it very good, very well.
Yeah, I need that was I need to take a better picture of that one.
Sorry about that. Okay, let's see here. So in 1996, I can't see it very well, unfortunately. If I had my glasses, maybe I could see it better, but I bet I would recognize it. So
He's
90
standing on an odd number.
number. Number three had really big feet, but I don't know who that is.
Three is Seth Houston from Davis County.
Oh yeah, I remember him. He was
Yeah,
tough.
yeah, he was tough.
I can't see the faces. Who's on five?
Number five is Garrett South from.
Oh my gosh. See, I can't. I don't recognize it.
Yeah, he
Wow.
beat me for fifth and I'm the sixth place guy. He beat me for
Oh
fifth and
gosh.
sixth
There
that
you
year.
go.
And he
What
was
a
one of these guys that I could be. I talked about it a little bit last week. He was one of these guys that fifth and sixth place match was so frustrating. He beat me by like a point or two, like 6-5 or something. You could be so deep in on a shot on that kid on that guy, and I don't know what he would do, but he would end up with the takedown somehow. I was
right.
getting so frustrated. That was one of the most frustrating matches I ever wrestled. Just because, just because I felt like I was like everything I was initiating. I felt like I was doing. I felt like I was initiating everything well, and I thought that I was getting in good,
Right.
and he would just kibosh it, like just stopped it
He had
somehow.
a, he had a
I
move that he would hit in college, Josh, and it might have been then too. I'm not sure, but a guy would shoot and he would kind of go to an over under, and he was so relaxed in those positions. Right when he
yeah
gets his leg, he was just like so calm there, and he's like checking out the crowd, seeing what's going on. He's
yeah.
just looking out there, and then he would elevate his foot and roll a guy through with an over under, and we called it. I don't know if South labeled it or his teammates labeled it or if he had it in high school, but it was the old crap with the other word. So
Mhm.
shit, what it was called. And I remember at the national tournament his junior year, he was wrestling a kid that he was way better than. It might have even been in the semifinals or the quarterfinals his junior year. But it was a kid was good. I mean, he was athletic and he was good, and the guy was getting to Garrett's legs. And finally, at the end, Garrett just sat to his butt and elevated him through and put him on his back and pinned him. And I remember the kid
I know
coming off
exactly
so
what you mean.
mad. I know the guy was so mad when he came off the mat. And I was like nervous too. So when Garrett came off the mat, I'm like, Garrett, that was awesome. But I think we should try to avoid to do that in the biggest match. Let the guy in that deep if we can help it in these big matches.
And he's probably looking at you like, "Why? I was
Yeah, I know
comfortable.
he
I'm
was. He's
comfortable
like,
there. It
he was. He's like,
worked."
it was there. I could do it. But yeah,
He was so strong, deceptively. Like you wouldn't be able to tell how strong he was until you would feel like you had him dead in the water, and then all of a sudden you don't, and he just all of a sudden would like spurt, and all of a sudden you're, oh my god, this is one of the strongest human beings I've ever come up against.
I know
Suddenly,
he is so tough, such a gamer, also so relaxed and calm. Uh, Three-time All-American, runner-up in overtime, I think, his junior year, and then a national champ his senior year. Placed at Midlands, I think second at the UNI Open, placed at the UNO Open. That's when all the great schools were going there. He beat a lot of good Division One. He beat Division One All-Americans. He beat a lot of really great kids throughout his career,
one of
and
the nicest people you'll run into.
smart,
Mhm.
unbelievably smart, so smart. When he came to Luther, he was smart, and he double majored here in math and I think management, if I remember correctly, and had great grades and worked at it. Did what he needed to. He was a worker too, but could get by with a lot less than a lot of other people could because he was so bright.
Yeah.
And
How did you end up recruiting him? Well, I'm sure that you recruited everybody, but
yeah,
how did things kind of go with Garrett South in the recruiting trail?
it's kind of fun because at the end, I really didn't think we were going to get him. And I talked with him at the state tournament after he got done with his finals match. I remember catching him in Betts Auditorium down below, and we had a good visit. But he was getting recruited by everybody, and then somehow after that, I knew he was a good student, and so I stayed on him, and I set up a home visit, and it was in 2001, I think, in the spring, if I remember correctly, and we had just trophied. We got 4th fourth in the country that year in 2001, and I did a home visit. I drove down to their farmhouse and brought that trophy with me and sat down, and we had a great visit. But we are still a long ways from getting them still. But that gesture was enough to get him to visit campus. He hadn't visited Luther yet. Then
Hmm.
he came up, visited Luther, got a great financial aid package, and we got him. And he's a Southwest Iowa guy. All of his
Hmm.
buddies from Southwest Iowa were not coming to Northeast Iowa to wrestle. They were going to Simpson College. A lot of them were at that time. Simpson was really good, so a lot of the Linux guys were going, there, and the other good programs in that area were going to Simpson. And he had a lot of friends at Simpson, so we got him here. But to say that the first year was smooth would be not true. I mean, it was an adjustment. He was up here. We were training at a pretty hard level. We had a really good room at the time. We had Garrett Kurth in the room. We had Jesse Ryerson, who was a national champ at the time. We had a guy by the name of Ryan LeBeau, who ended up being an NCAA runner-up. And so practices were good. He would win most of the goes, but he didn't win every go. There were
Hmm.
a lot of battles going on, and we were training hard too. We were running and all that kind of stuff. And the winter gets long. So long story short, we get to the I guess it'd be called the Iowa Conference, and he wins the Iowa Conference, beats a nationally ranked kid in the finals, and he's named OW of the Iowa Conference tournament his
I
freshman.
remember that. I remember that. I
Crazy.
was really happy for him because I've always liked the guy.
Yes,
You
me
know, one of
too.
my favorite guys in my grade.
Stud. But then I go to the state tournament the week later. So he qualifies. The state tournament in Iowa is a week later as we're getting ready, and then the NCAA is the week after. I'm at the state tournament, and I'm hearing rumblings from people that say that Garrett South is transferred to Simpson College. He just went named OW. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd be heartbreaking if that happened. And,
Yeah, I wonder,
and I have no idea if they were true or not. And I don't think I ever really,
probably not. Honestly, that
yeah,
stuff gets. They say
yeah,
when there's smoke, there's fire. But then again, this
yeah.
is wrestling, and there's
You get a lot of
all
buddies.
kinds of all kinds of there's all kinds of fake smoke out there. I don't know in wrestling. People just
Oh,
like to talk about.
yeah,
I
yeah,
you know, it, from what I remember back then, and I used to talk to him every time I saw him. I always wondered if he remembered me, but
I'm sure he
he
does.
always seemed like he was really happy at Luther.
Yeah. After we got through that first year, and I think that's a lot of the case at Luther in general, Josh, it's a strong institution. You have to work in the classroom here too, in a good way, right? It's like being in a good wrestling room. You're surrounded by great training partners. You get better at wrestling. Well, in the classroom, you're surrounded by a lot of really great students. So you get better as a student. And so after that, if you can get people through the first year, they love this place the rest of their life. But sometimes that first year is a bit of an adjustment up here.
Hmm.
I'm so glad that Garrett stuck with it. Obviously for us, but for him too, I think his best friends, a lot of his best friends in his life are guys that he wrestled with up here, and that's very common at Luther. The environment fosters a really strong team bond and a family atmosphere, and so he's really tight with a lot of his teammates still, and I'm tight with a lot of those guys too, which is
And
cool.
heck, he's still talked about. I mean, I know. Like last time I talked to Dakota Gray, he
Yeah,
even talked about how he knew about Garrett South.
I know
You know,
it's
it
cool.
says a lot when people are still talking about you
It is.
10,
It
10 years
does.
down the line.
It does. And his dad had a chicken coop that they converted to a little wrestling room, Ryan South, and he trains guys. Still takes some high schoolers in there and trains them in that little chicken coop. And we went down there on the way to the UNO Open a few times and stopped by there to work out too. And his sister Tiffany now is coaching at that Southwest Iowa girls program
Okay.
down, yeah, SWAT I think it's called or something. And so yeah, she's coming up to camp with the team, which we're excited about. So it's just a wrestling family, which is cool.
Hmm.
Great guy.
Gotcha.
Great guy.
All right, off to the next.
So memory lane, man. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, you'll love this next one.
Jeez. Oh,
Hey, let
look
me.
at that. 1987 right there.
Yep. Let me
Or
zoom in a
88.
little bit.
Maybe 88. And let's see. Was this the state duels by chance? Is that
Yep.
87?
Yep. That's where I got it from, actually.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I gotta
87.
scroll that down.
So in 87, Riceville had a bunch of guys at districts, and only a couple made it through to state. And I can't even remember which ones, to be honest, in 87. But we had a bunch that maybe could have or should have. And, I had a match with a kid from East Buchanan. His name was Nick Lint, for example. And the match was close. I got a reversal right at the buzzer. The official gave me two. We shook hands. The official rose my hand. I went to the locker room. Somehow 5 minutes later, somebody gets me in the locker room and takes me back out on the mat and said they reversed the call. It's tied. So I think the match was tied. I got a reversal, won it, but then I had to come back out and wrestle in overtime. And I was just so young and immature. Now I know how to handle that. But at that age, I just didn't handle it well. And I got beaten overtime and, good match. Well, that kid ended up getting third in state, a week later. And that was kind of my history. So my senior year, I had the state champion from Ackley, Geneva in my district, and then the kid that was third in state in my district. And I think, I might not have been able to beat them all, but I could have, I could have maybe beat them at the right time. But at that time, it wasn't right. So back in '87, that was that year. We had a bunch of guys who were like me that they maybe could have won, but they didn't win. But we had this dual meet team that was good.
Oh, it's balanced, like very balanced.
And we get to the state duels, and by golly, all of a sudden we're in the finals. And 1987 was the first year of the state duels. I don't know if you knew that or not. That was
I did not know that, actually.
First year. And so we're in the finals at UNI of the very first dual meet event, first dual state championship ever against Lisbon. Okay. And we wrestled Lisbon. Lisbon was light years better than us. I mean, how many state champs did they have on their team at that point? Maybe 4 or 5. And they were just way better than us.
Yeah, the community treats it like a holiday.
Yeah, right. When we wrestle them, we have a kid that doesn't qualify for state, headlocks one of the Light brothers, one of the 2 or 3 time state champs. I think it was Ike. And he pins him.
Oh, goodness.
Right after the kid won a state title. And our guy never qualified. And then we had another upset, and we had another upset. And so all of a sudden, we're in a dual meet with Lisbon, at least in our eyes. We're in a
you got Mike Heeman at 180, 195 coming up.
Yeah, he was my workout partner. And so, we were kind of in a dual meet. Now, Lisbon was too good, and they got serious after that, and they beat us. And I can't remember what the final dual score was, but we scored double-digit points, I think, and it might have been 20-something to 12 or something. I can't remember. But I remember coming out of that thinking, man, we did pretty good. We went through the line and shook hands with Lisbon, and we had those tough sons of a guns. I remember John McGovern and I looking at each other when we were going through, and they're saying, you shouldn't even be, they were just tough people, like really tough humans. And then we're like, oh my gosh, these guys are freaking tough. They beat us, and now they're beating us again,
Yeah.
Years later, we'll get a kick out of this because years later at camp, this would have been like 3 or 4 years ago from now, I ran into one of those guys. And I didn't think he'd remember what was said and go through that handshaking line, but I did because we were the recipients of it,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think they would remember it. They were so good. He was so freaking embarrassed of that, right? He was so embarrassed of what they had said in that line, in 1987. I didn't care. I thought it was, at this point in my life, I thought it was kind of funny at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys
must have really gotten to him.
they're really tough. But now is this kind of a fun story. But now full circle, and that guy was really embarrassed about that. And
it says a lot about his character that he remembered that.
It does say a lot. It does, and be able to talk that through afterwards at camp was really cool, and had nothing but respect for him and their team. They were studs. But yeah, that was a really good team. 1987 state runner-up in the dual meets, man. And since it was the first year, you can imagine this too, Josh. Like, as a coach, they're trying to figure out how you manage it, right? You got to go to the state duels on Tuesday, the regional duels on Tuesday after sectionals. And we had 2 dual meets on that Tuesday. And so you're trying to figure out how do you manage weight? When do you come in for practices? And in the first year as a coach, now that I'm coaching, that'd be hard. You'd learn something from the first year that you'd want to implement the following year. But Rip did a great job with it. And I think Rip, we could visit with him about it, but I think he would probably say that he was very proud of that second place finish, but probably would wonder if those state duels impacted our performance at that district on Saturday, right? Like I talked about, we had a lot of state matches that we lost on that Saturday because we had to travel quite a ways. It was a couple-hour bus ride that we had to go to on that Tuesday. So he did a great job of getting that team together, and that was just an epitome of Dave Ripley. When they won a state title in 1994, I think it was, Riceville didn't have a state champion. So they won a 1A team individual state title with no individual state champ. And that, again, that's Rip through and through, right? Depth, right? Getting everybody to perform at an above average level.
Did Heeman win one the next year then, or?
So this would have been, you're probably thinking a different Mike Heeman. There's another Mike Heeman that was before this that would have been a senior when I was an 8th grader. They used to call him Hammer, and he wrestled at Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
Qualified at Nebraska. This Mike Heeman was a state runner-up the following
Okay.
year in 1988 at 185, and
Gotcha.
he was my workout partner. We had two Mike Hemans, coincidentally, but they're both good.
Nice. Nice. All right. Go to the next one. We're gonna look at some stats, and I'm really happy to learn that you're a math guy because I can talk math, man. I love it. But that's just gonna be some basic stats.
Okay.
If I can find it, hopefully you can see it. And I probably do need to zoom in a little bit so you can see it.
Yeah. Uh,
And
yeah. There's a lot of stuff.
we'll go to some of the names instead of the because the pro
Yeah.
But here's a list of your NCAA, or well, Luther College's
Hmm.
NCAA Division III national champions from 1979 to, well, just all of them.
Hmm.
Your I'm making this too hard. It's got your national champions. It's got your runner ups. It's got your
Yeah.
NAIA All Americans. I didn't realize you guys were NAIA at one point.
Yeah.
It's got your Division III All Americans
Hmm.
and your three timers.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was gonna run down with this and just mention some of these names that you coached and just kind of see
Hmm.
what you have to say about them. We've talked about Garrett Kurth a little bit.
Yeah.
Jesse Ryerson. Tell me
Stud.
about him a little bit.
Yeah. One on stubbornness. He stayed in great position. He was from Minnesota, had an amazing headlock when he came to Luther, and was really good with a crossbody leg ride, guillotine, which worked for him really well, and a cradle. And he had just a really strong guy overall. And just his shots weren't flashy. He wasn't a slick guy. He was just grab a hold of you and just going to stay on you the whole time. And that's how he won his national title. He was down in the quarterfinals. He got put on his back in the first period and had to fight off his back for over 2 minutes. I thought he was going to get pinned. He came back. He was in a big hole, kept coming, kept coming, kept coming, won the match at the end of the match, which was huge. In the
Nice.
finals, it was 0-0 at the end of the first. It's the only match in his entire career that I coached him that he got a bloody nose. And it was in the second period. This kid that he was wrestling was really good on top. And this kid took top in the second period when a 0-0 match, and he rode Jesse the entire period and was a crossface cradler and bloodied Jesse nose. We had a bunch of blood time, and he didn't get out. So it's 0-0 going into the third. It's our choice. He's got a bloody nose. He's given up 2 minutes of riding time. What do you do? Well, we went down. We went down. Just got ridden for 2 minutes, but the kid did have a stalling call in that second period. So we went
Okay.
down with about 30 seconds left. Jesse gets a reversal and puts the guy on his back and wins the national title.
He's
Just tough.
that's up there as one of your top memories,
He's
coaching
just
memories ever.
yeah, he's just tough. Just a tough guy.
Those
All
guys
the
that you can count on, right? In those moments.
Yes, you knew what you had. You knew what you had. He was just a really tough guy. Still is. He lives in Detroit here now, and he comes in, helps out when he can. Just a really great guy and a tough guy.
Cool.
Let's see who's the next guy in there.
Matt Pyle.
Stud. Oh my gosh,
I don't know
four-time
why I don't
Olympic.
remember him. I should because I was at Loris at 2005. I don't know
Yeah,
why I don't remember him.
yeah. Oh man, he would have wrestled Collins probably. Was there Collins there? Or was he a little before that? I can't remember. He was
See, Charlie Bishop was
Bishop.
157.
He wrestled Bishop. So did Jesse. He wrestled Bishop some too.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Bishop was one of my best friends on the team. He was really tough.
He was tough. Yeah,
Yeah, I want to say he was an All American, I believe.
he
Brad
was.
Bishop was an All American. Charlie was too. Actually, they were both All Americans.
I think so. But Matt was a stud, third in the country as a true freshman. Remember, I talked earlier about that freshman year can be a
Mhm.
transition.
Oh
And
yeah,
after his freshman year, he was from Kansas. He transferred out and went to Kansas State. Third in the country as a true freshman, transferred out, went to Kansas State, and mid-year decided that he wanted to come back. And obviously, we were talking with him the whole time, but he decided to come back, so he transferred back in. Middle of his second year, was a national champion 2.5 months later. All American again as a junior, and then a national champ as a senior. In his bracket at the national tournament his senior year, there were three returning Division III national champions, including the 157 pounder that dropped down because he wanted a challenge. The 57
Mhm.
pounder only went down because he won it easily the previous year at 57, and he knew 49 was a tougher weight. And then there
Wow.
was a JUCO finalist that was in the bracket and a couple of All Americans. It was a stacked bracket. and Pyle pinned his way through that bracket
Holy cow!
for one match, all but one match, and he had a major decision over the 57-pound returning national champ that year.
Man, I'd
And so
like to see a copy of that bracket
yeah,
and post
it
it.
was something. Yeah, it was something. So he was
I,
named OW of the tournament, and he had the most pins in the least amount of time. Right, it was like he did it all that year in 2005, 2007, I think it was. And then
mm,
that same year, Nate Hansen won a national title. Nate coached at Simpson, and
yep, so it looks like 2007. And
yeah, yeah, he was a stud too. I think both those guys, I'm pretty sure were undefeated in Division Three that year, and both had great seasons. And Nate was a stud, three-time state champ out of South Dakota, coming to Luther, and was fourth in the country his junior year with a broken hand. Again, down at Vets, after we'd qualify for the national tournament, then we'd go to Vets to recruit and bring those qualifiers with us to work out. And he broke his finger above his ring hand in the basement of Vets when we were drilling down there about 4 days before the NCAs. And so he really wrestled one handed and got fourth and then won it the next year. He was real tough.
wow,
Mike Lopez around that time as well. Lopez
I
was a,
remember Lopez.
yeah,
Yeah, he
never,
gave our guy. It wasn't Terry Morgan. He gave one of our guys fits. We had a
yeah,
tough 133 pounder.
you did have a tough guy. I can't remember his name, but they were high school rivals too. I can't
Hmm.
remember that kid's name, but he was real good. Um, but yeah, Loper never placed at the Illinois State Tournament. Was a three-time state qualifier, but never placed. And he was a camp guy. He had been in our camps coming through. And when he was at camp, I thought, yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. And when he was a senior in high school, I remember watching a couple of his matches. I thinking, he's pretty good. But that summer, he just kept wrestling and training and wrestling and training. So when he showed up at Luther in September and we got on the mat in October, there was a big difference on how much
Awesome.
better he was in that time period. And he ended up as a freshman going 37-13, qualifying for the NCAA tournament. I think he went 1-2 or 2-2 at the NCAAs. Uh, the next year, Nate Hansen came in, and Nate Hansen was a stud recruit. And so Nate beat him out actually for 133. Then the following year, Hansen goes down to 25, and then Lopez gets the spot back at 33, places fourth in the country, and then he wins a national title the next year. So
Nice.
he was a stud, an accountant, really smart guy as well. Who else? Ryan LeBeau, finalist. He was a really slick. He'd have been a national champ. His senior year, he had at the time the only four-time Division III national champion, Marcus Levasseur. He wrestled in the finals his senior year.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd have won it any other guy any other
Like
year. He'd have won it. But
Cole Pape beat Marcus Levasseur was the number one recruit at my weight.
yeah,
And he was in my grade. And
yeah.
of my class and at my weight, he was the number one guy I think in the entire nation. And Cole Pape beat him
Wow,
at the Dream Team Classic. Yeah,
wow. I did
yeah,
not know. Wow, that's saying something,
yeah.
isn't
And
it?
then Cody Koenig beat Pape at the All Star meet the next week.
Jeez, think about those.
Yeah,
Cody,
I
Cody.
beat Koenig 3 weeks before that at Fort Madison.
Jeez, he's a stud too. Talk about a
Well,
great.
I threw a headlock,
Yeah,
but I worked a lot of hours perfecting that headlock.
exactly right.
That, you got to have a lefty sag in your arsenal, otherwise,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But yeah, that was pretty wild.
that is.
I couldn't believe when Pape. Actually, I could believe it because I knew firsthand how good Pape was. Obviously,
Think about all the good guys Peyton beat, man. Just think about the
yeah.
names you mentioned here
I mean,
tonight.
Garrett Kurth as a freshman. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
unheard of. Although I don't. This is not to take anything away from Pape, but I don't know. It almost looked like Kurth kind of hit a wall in that third period. It just
yeah,
I don't feel
yeah.
like he wrestled his best match in that one.
He did.
And he would probably be the first one to tell you.
Yeah,
But you'll have those. It just kind of sucks for him that it came at such a bad time.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
There's
then Zach Bartlett was a stud too. I think 2009 is when he won it, and he was a tall, skinny guy, really tall, very skinny, and great competitor. He was one of those handful of guys that loved to compete. The bigger the match, the better he was. And in the finals, he was in a tight match, and a guy shot a high crotch on him. It's a guy he'd wrestled over and over and over again throughout his college career from Cornell College. Great wrestler by the name of Nick Northern. And Zach put on a leg cradle. When the guy got to his leg, he shot a high crotch, then put his head underneath his leg so that he didn't scoot around. And Zach leg cradled him in the last 30 seconds.
it's amazing to me that how those guys are able to feel that.
It is.
I
I know.
I don't know. I can't even imagine being able to feel that.
He
I
was
don't even
so.
know if I would be able to like. Yeah, I don't even know if I could practice one. I don't even know if I know how to do one.
I know. I know.
But man, every team has a couple of them that love those leg cradles,
Yes.
and man, they
Yeah.
make things a lot of fun, don't they?
He does. He was tough on top too. Not great on his feet. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. Kid from Wisconsin who was a finalist. Oh gosh, 25, 33 pounder. Really, really good. Just a handful of years ago that graduated. Um, Zach wrestled him in the UNO finals, and Zach, this guy would shoot on him, and Zach would take him down. He'd shoot on him, and Zach would take him down. And then Zach got on top and turned him. And this kid was a freshman, true freshman, and so he was
Hmm.
redshirting. But Zach was ahead of him by a lot. And then this guy kind of figured out shoot doubles, shoot doubles, shoot doubles, and he can't scoot around. He can't do anything funky on me. So he started taking Zach down like a tackling dummy with doubles and beat Zach in overtime. But anyway, that guy ended up being a multiple time All American in Wisconsin. And Tyler Graff, that's who it was.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly who it was, Tyler Graff. Yeah. And so he
Thanks
was,
for watching, Zach.
yeah, he was tough. And what's really fun, the full circle is that our 84 pounder this year, Donovan Cord, that placed third in the country, Zach coached him in high school. So Zach coached Donovan at a high school in Arizona where was the head coach. And so now we got an all, not only was Zach a national champ, but we got an All American that Zach coached, which is really cool.
Nice.
Good.
Nice.
Drew Van Anroy was a stud, transferred in from Oregon State. He was at Oregon State for 3 years and then came to Luther for two. His record in 2 years was 50 wins and one loss. One loss was in double overtime, triple overtime at the NCAA tournament his junior year. And just so strong, so explosive. He was the real deal. He was for sure, one of the most complete wrestlers. Now he came to us that way, right? It wasn't that we developed him into that. He came to us that way, and we were happy he was here for us. He did an awesome job. Then
Awesome.
some of the other finalists there, Justin Kreider, North Scott guy, got third at the state his senior year. His dad Eugene was the head coach there. In fact, I
Yeah.
think he just retired from North Scott. Great coach, and Justin was a stud. Again, that first year, tough making that transition to college, college wrestling. I think he was thinking, maybe do I even want to be wrestling? I know he was thinking about transferring to University of Iowa and just, giving up wrestling. And that's where that family support in that first year is so important, I think, for guys because families can provide that foundation and just encourage and just keep going, give it more time, keep going, and then see. Maybe in some cases it isn't the right thing, after year two,
Hmm.
year three. But in most cases, my experience has been, like I've said, if they get through that first year, they're going to have a great experience. And Justin was a stud after that. Was fourth in the country his junior year, in-state finalist his senior year, and wrestled a really, really good kid in the finals. And he beat an NHSCA national champ in the quarters, and he beat a Fargo finalist in the semis. To
Wow.
get to the finals. I mean, that's a level that the wrestling is, and Justin developed into that level. He grew into that level, which was awesome.
I bet his dad was pumped.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, no doubt. The whole family, Uncle Kurt too, and Mom Nancy, the whole family, brother
They're always
Colin.
so enthusiastic when I talk to them about
Yeah,
wrestling, and they love their Quad Cities area
yeah,
wrestling. Man, they're proud of
yeah,
it, and they should be because they've done a lot for that region, the entire region. I think they've had their hand in some. I think they've trained some Clinton, DeWitt guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly
it's
right.
a
Yeah, they've done a
very very
job.
influential family in Quad Cities region.
They are.
And there's a Ryan LeBeau. I think we
Yeah,
skipped over on.
that was the one that talked about with LeBesser wrestling in the finals.
Oh, okay.
Very talented Minnesota State champion, and he's also fourth in the country his junior year, and then an NCAA finalist his senior year. I think it was his. So he was stacked in there with all of those good guys. It was Kurth, it was Ryerson, it was South. They're all there. And so
Hmm.
where does LeBeau go? Right, he was about that same weight. I think Pyle came in the mix there somewhere as well. So I'm sorry, LeBeau. I think it was either his first year or second year we moved him up to 174. And at the Iowa Conference tournament, he was truly a 57 pounder and wrestled it all year. But at the Iowa Conference tournament, I think he placed fifth at 174 as a 57 pounder. And you could see that he was going to be a stud. And then the next year, I think he was fourth in the country. And then, like I said, finalist the next year.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Did we discuss Drew Van Inouye?
Yeah, Van Andel was the Oregon State guy who's
Oh,
just
okay. That's
sweet wrestler. Yep, I think I got them. The guys before me too, Josh, that really established Luther wrestling. I mean, there's a coach that coached here from 1960 to 64. His name is Merle Foss, and I've had a chance to reconnect with him in recent years. And you know, I he they won 4 conference titles from 60 to 64 when he was the coach. He went on to go to Iowa to get a PhD, he and his wife, and then he went to University of Michigan and taught for years, and now he's retired, but he's a big influencer for the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club at the University of Michigan. So last summer, I drove to Ann Arbor to meet with him and his wife, and met with Sean Bourmet and the Michigan staff, and just phenomenal guy, right? But he started to establish it. Wally Johnson started the program at Luther. Wally went on to have a long career as the head coach at the University of Minnesota after he left Luther. So he started wrestling at Luther, then left and was the head coach at Minnesota forever. After Foss, there were a couple coaches, and then Paul Solberg was a legendary coach. Our wrestling room is named after him, and he was the one that started producing national championships. Dan Bowes was an absolute stud. He was Division One All American when the D3 champs used to be able to go to the D1s, and he's a New Hampton native. He'd be a great one to do an article on sometime.
definitely.
Just a
Well,
stud. Yeah. And then his older brother too was real tough. It was at Luther. And then the Boslogs came through. Jeff Boslog was a Cedar Rapids guy, Marion, and he was a 2-time NCAA champion, named OW of the national tournament as a lawyer up in the Twin Cities. Really good guys. And then Greg Lonning was a national champion too. So those were the 3 national champs that got things going, and that was during the Paul Solberg era, where he just really established a high level. And then then there was a period of time, things happened, it ebb and flows, and it just kind of dipped, just as things happened for a while, and then we're fortunate to just have a good go here for quite a while now.
okay. Um, when we finish up, I'm gonna finish up with some questions,
Great.
but I've actually got some questions that somebody sent from my phone to my phone, so
Okay.
I'll be reading off from here. This will be from Coach Cruz.
Yeah.
Um, who was the winner of the Jeff O'Gara versus Kurt Kreider match at camp?
Okay. So Jeff O'Gara, 118-pound national champ. Kurt Kreider, All American at Augustana, heavyweight, big dude, right? Kurt
Hmm.
was the AD at Central DeWitt and head coach there for a lot of times. Well, we had a seeding meeting for the final tournament on Friday night. And at the seeding meeting, they both are starting to jibber jabber back and forth. And they said,
Hmm.
I'll meet you in the gym tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and we'll settle this. Well, neither one of them thought the other one would show up, but I'll be damned, they both showed up. And so they're down there and they wrestle and wrestle. And I didn't come in until like a half hour later, 45 minutes later, and they're still wrestling. No takedowns. They're still wrestling. And they're still going and no take. And it ended up being a draw. They called it after whatever, half hour, 45 minutes. It was a draw. So no winner was ever determined.
Oh, that's no fun. Maybe we can get a rematch.
Yo, yeah,
Cover it on Pin Doctors.
let's do it. Let's do it. I like it. Kurt would be up for it. I don't know if O'Gara would be. I think he probably would.
So, it sounds tough enough to be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And from what I've heard, I've pretty intense individual.
He is. He is. Yeah.
How hard was it to get AJ Ferrari to camp to be a counselor?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's more time than what we have here, and I know a lot of other camp directors probably have similar stories that I do. And what I will say about AJ is when he touched that mat, he's the best clinician we've ever had. That's
Mm,
saying something. We've had some of
yeah,
the very best of the very best. When his shoes touched that mat, he was phenomenal. It was
it's
all
no showy stuff. It's all I'm
it's
here to
great.
teach you.
It was, and he's great with kids, and he really cares about the development of kids and the stuff. He had a good system, and the way he showed it, he was energizing. The kids loved him. He told me that on the phone. He's like, "Bro, kids love me, bro. They love me. They're gonna love me at camp." And he was right. They do love him at camp. It
Hmm.
was just the logistics, and it's a couple 3 years ago, and the NIL deal just came out. He was getting a lot of money. He had lots of different scenarios. And I don't even for some of that stuff, it'd be hard to be an 18-year-old kid and have all that money thrown at you and you're getting pulled everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
And some of that stuff would be tough to manage for anybody, I think.
yeah, yeah. I'm not one to judge.
Yeah,
And not to mention some of the I'm not one to ever even really assume that certain things are
right.
until everything works itself out. I
Yeah.
just consider it their business,
Yeah. Me too.
and
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
What I know is that when he was at camp, he was phenomenal, and I think
awesome.
there's a lot of great qualities he has.
It's really good. Yeah. My brother Brennan is very excited to get to know. I don't think he's committed yet. I haven't really been following. I don't really
No.
follow the gossip much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd think I would, but I know one or two of them have committed, and he's real
Oh, yeah.
excited to get to know that family.
I bet. I bet they'll be tough. They'll be great workout partners too.
Yeah, yeah. Did any of the high school coaches end up stealing your athletic trainer from your program? Hopefully, these questions are okay.
These are all camp. They're all questions with an agenda. So at camp again at one of these seating meetings, our athletic trainer was great for our program. She did an awesome job for us. Joined us for this seating meeting, and Cruz puts on a suave and ends up marrying our athletic trainer and taking her away from Luther College from us. So they met at camp. They met at camp for the first time, and they start dating, and they
Say
doggone
he
married.
puts on a suave.
Yeah, he put his
I can.
Mojo.
That's how
Yeah,
I got my. That's how I got the name Rico. Because my
really,
last
yeah,
name,
good.
my last name sounds like suave.
That's true. There you go.
I had to do a double take there.
Yeah, that's it. So
But
yeah, so we ended up married Jenny, and they're happily married. I got together with them for lunch last week. In fact, when I was down in the Quad Cities.
cool, cool. All right, so we're gonna get to the ones in the actual broadcast, and you're a very popular guy. So I'm sure they're gonna continue to accumulate. Um,
Is there a time limit on this? There's got to be a time limit, isn't there, Rico?
no, no, I'm
Okay,
pretty informal.
okay,
Yeah.
good,
Um,
good.
just
I'm
as
good.
long as you're able to,
Yeah, I'm good.
just as long as you're not tired,
Yeah, I'm good.
I don't get tired. I should probably get tired earlier than I do because it probably indicate better health. But uh,
I'm gonna do landscaping all day tomorrow. I don't have to do that.
uh, yeah, that'll probably put me back in a routine.
Yeah.
Kirk Landon, I had him on the. He was actually the guy that came on last week. He was a state champ for Audubon. And he says, I'm late to the show, and I just talked to Ryan South today. So, Coach Mitchell, do you have any Garrett South stories?
Cool.
And I think after he posted this comment, I think we actually did tell
Yeah.
some, yeah,
I got
Garrett South.
one more quick Garrett South story. It's regarding sprints. He hated doing sprints, Garrett. He loved wrestle live, didn't like to drill very much, but loved to wrestle live. Like those are the guys you want, right? The guys that just want to tie it on and compete. And that was Garrett. If we were competing in a, flag football or doing something like that, he would compete there too. He was a competitor, but didn't like doing sprints. And somehow his always would have his heart skip a beat about 3 sprints into every sprint we ever did, and he would have to pull off to the side to recover. So
Heart
yeah,
palpitations are
he did. He did.
scary.
No, it is. Yeah, he did have that. Yeah, but I always teased him. He was trying to get out of sprints.
I would tease him, but he beat me for fifth and sixth at state when I was seventh grader. So I don't think I'm going to mess with him.
Right.
I remember how strong those hips were when I thought I was finishing a shot on him.
No, it's so strong, so good.
Mark Langrick says, Coach Dave, please tell Coach Jeff takedowns for $1 next time I see him.
He's up for it. I don't mind.
Oh no, I got somebody talking smack about my brother Shay. Cale Brandt says I can beat your brother Shay in a wrestling match. That might be true, buddy, but I guarantee you can't beat him in a dance off. Lance Serbasic says, amazing coach. I miss the Luther family.
Yeah, Lance is a Kansas guy.
Blue Valley?
Yeah, Blue Valley.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his get this, dude.
his
His
dad.
dad and my dad were high school rivals
Love it.
from Wapello, from Wapello.
Yeah,
And Blue Valley came to the Minneapolis invitation
every year.
every year.
Yes.
And I had to wrestle Zach Roberson.
Oh, wow. Did you really?
Yeah, I was the lucky one.
Oh, my.
Yeah, not good. I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore. He was on top of the world. He pinned me. Um, but yeah, his dad, his
Yeah.
sister married our assistant coach. So that's what the connection was between Blue Valley coming up to Minneapolis.
I see. Yeah.
And yeah, there's twins. There's Tim and Todd, I think,
I
from
think you're
from
right.
Wapello,
I think you're right.
and
Yep.
they were both like placers from Wapello High School,
Yep. Yep.
and before going to Kansas.
It's
So
circle.
yeah, so his dad and my dad are rivals.
That's crazy. That's
I
really cool.
know.
Really cool. Yes,
I
that's
grew up hearing the last name Sir Bossick. I probably heard it a million times growing up. Like,
isn't that something? That's
yeah,
nuts. Yeah. Yeah, Serbo did a great job of coaching at Blue Valley Northwest down there. They would get a lot of kids that hadn't wrestled until ninth grade, and he was the perfect coach for those guys. He was so positive and encouraged them and kept them going. And he developed a lot of them in just 4 years to be in state place winners. And Lance was a stud. Lance was very good, a very good student as well. He's a veterinarian now out in Rapid City, and went to vet school after he left Luther, and just it was a very, very good wrestler. And really committed to getting better too. I remember, I think it was between his junior and senior year, stayed in Decorah and really just tried to get a lot of quality reps on
hmm
taking it. I remember the specific thing, trying to take the hesitation out on a sweep single. He had a really good sweep single, and sometimes he'd hesitate to drive up into him to get a finish, and he spent a lot of time on trying to
that's
take that
brilliant. I
hesitation
never
out.
even thought about that before.
Yeah, yeah, he did great. Yeah, miss you too, Lance. Hope to see you soon.
Now, this is my brother tuned in. Says awesome idea. I don't know what idea he's talking about. We've covered a lot of them. Justin, if you're still listening, elaborate a little bit, buddy. Andy Cruz says moms love taking pictures with AJ.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
he
true.
does. He does seem to have his female fans.
And the dudes. So did college or high school age dudes. They like getting pictures with him too. And AJ let him wear his $500 glasses. It was great. It's awesome.
Brendan, my whole family tuned in. I guess he's talking about the Ferraris. I believe says they seem like a
Awesome.
good group.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
well, we
Great.
got a little family thing going at Iowa.
Yeah, I love it.
Welcoming.
Yeah, I hope they hammer it.
Darren Svensson says, "What are your thoughts on the new college wrestling rules this year?"
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting. I think a lot of coaches I've talked with are trying to kind of wrap their heads around it. The ones I've visited with, and it's pretty early to see yet. What I'm nervous about is some of the things we talked about here tonight are, I love grinders. I love guys that can maybe aren't the most athletic, but they are very successful college wrestlers because they can grind things out. They develop good hips, and I think these new rules might hurt those kinds of guys just a little bit because you're
hmm
now not going to get rewarded for being a grinder on top as much necessarily.
Man,
And for fans, I think I get it. But I'm a purist, but I understand we need to do some of the things that are right, obviously for fans, and in the long term, I'm sure this will all be just fine. But I
the
like
thing
it.
I don't like is why take away the 4 point near fall. Like I thought we were trying to do away with stalling on top, not scoring points on top. See, I scored probably 80% of my points on top. I
Right,
uh, I still at Mediapolis. I still hold the single season. Cole Erickson actually tied me on that. I know he tied me on career near falls. I I still hold single season near falls to this day and career near falls, and we had 50 less matches.
yeah,
So
right.
that's all that was where most of my points were scored.
Exactly.
And why well, it just kind of pisses me off, to be honest with you, that they're if you're gonna mess with the top position, at least try and at least try and do it against these guys that literally aren't trying to do anything.
Is it going
Um,
away though? Is the four staying there and they're just adding a three? That's my understanding. That it's going to be a
oh,
two, a three, and a four. But I could be wrong on that too. Maybe I misunderstood it. But it was my
I'm
understanding.
usually wrong on these things. These
Well, I'm not saying you are because I could be wrong, but it was my understanding that you get two swipes, points,
okay,
four swipe, 4 points. Kind of makes sense. Why not give
mhm.
3 points for three swipes?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
I
like that. Then I
yeah,
mean,
I think that's what it is. I hope that's what it is because
I
I'm
do
with you.
too.
I'm with you. Otherwise, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. It's if you're wanting to do away with the stalling on top, then that'd be
Right.
the opposite way of going about it. You'd think
Right.
you'd want to give the top guy more incentive to turn guys.
Right. I agree.
Um,
The
yeah,
one rule that I don't have an answer for, but the one that's the most frustrating for me as a college coach, and I think for a lot of college coaches, is this out of bounds rule. I just every time, at least at our level, somebody
mhm.
goes out of bounds, everybody's sitting there anxious to see what the call is going to be. Like nobody freaking knows. When you get to the Division Ones, they never call stalling on the edge out of bounds. But at our level, especially throughout the season, we go out of bounds. It's like, what are they going to call? Is it going to be defensive? Guy backing out? Is it going to be guy pushing a guy out?
Coin
And
toss.
yeah, right. I freaking don't know, and it's so frustrating. So a lot of people have said, well, we should just go to a push-out rule, and I like the concept of it. But here's what I don't like about it: the college wrestling mat is so big right now Like I tell our guys, there is no out of bounds. You just got to wrestle, man, all the time. And it's so big. And think about all the scoring that would go away on that edge of the out of bounds if you made it a push out rule. And I'll give you a good example in freestyle. And I love freestyle and I love the US Open being out there. But, Jordan Burroughs will shoot a beautiful shot. He'll get a single up in the air instead of being able to attack him with a double, and he'll just push him out and get a point and then come back to the center. He doesn't ever have to finish it because he's so athletic. He's probably going to get to the guy's legs again,
Mm.
right? Where in college, man, if it was a 1 point push out versus a finish, college guys are trying to finish that leg attack, and there's a lot of
Right.
wrestling that happens there. In addition to some of the near fall stuff that we talked about, so I don't think a push out rule, in my opinion, is necessarily the way to go. But what I don't like personally is if I push you out, no matter how it happened, how do I get called for stalling? I mean, I'm not.
Right.
When am I ever trying to push you out? Number one, I'm never trying to push you out. I'm trying to wrestle most cases. Why
Mhm.
would I want to push you out? Why
Right.
would you do
Right.
that? The advantage of
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. Why do you want to just get a restart in the center?
Right.
You
Right. There's
know,
no advantage to that. So
there's
yeah,
no points. You don't score any points
I know.
other than if there's a push.
I know. I know.
It's like really we want to implement sumo wrestling into wrestling.
I know. I know. So I just don't. I just don't like it when the offensive guy gets called for stalling when we go out of bounds. The guy that backs out, if you want to call him every time he goes out, fine with me. I can live with that. Don't call it a push out. Don't give him a point. But if you know every time he goes out, if you want to call him, that's fine. It's his job to stay in bounds. That's fine with me. But don't. I don't like this. The guy attacking offensively gets scored for stall, called for stalling.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I know it's hard, and the officials are doing the best they can too.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't, they're trying to figure it out as they go. But that's the one rule that I just wish we could clean up a little bit. There's a lot of other stuff that's pretty good.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't even thought of that stuff before, and
yeah,
I'm totally on board with that.
yeah, yeah.
And when it comes to officials, I used to be like back in the message board days. I used to, if a referee's call like upset me or whatever for whatever reason, I used to be vocal about it.
Yeah.
But a guy named Adam Hargrave just kind of set me straight on that and kind of I I don't feel right ever complaining about any official's call, whether I agree with it or not. Because for one, I'm not a certified official. I've never even read a rule book. They have,
Right.
and for two, they're the ones that have the balls to do it.
That's
I
true.
don't, and I won't ever because I admit I'm too scared to do. I don't want to deal with fans, you know,
Yeah,
out for blood if I make a bad call. I don't want to make some of these calls. Like, and if I
right.
do make some of them, I want to have at least like 10 seconds to decide. You don't have 10 seconds to decide to call.
That's
You
right.
know, some of
Right.
these officials, I just,
Right.
I have, it boggles my mind how quick on their feet and just how they're able to do it. It just,
Mm-hmm.
I'll never insult another official again.
Right. Yeah, that's great. We have a lot of great officials, and I will really lucky with that. And for coaches, and maybe even if you coached or refed at a youth event, it's so weird how when you put that whistle in your hand and you're the one making the call, how what a different perspective that is. Like when you're sitting in the corner coaching, it's so easy to call the points. But when you're out there with a whistle in your hand, it gets so complicated. So
Yeah,
quick. It's like, is it two yet? Is it not two? Oh, I got to be thinking about this. What's the period? It's just there's a lot going through your mind when you're just there
hmm
watching the match. It's pretty easy. So yeah,
it's probably so easy to make a like a bad call just on accident
I
sometimes.
know,
Remember,
right?
like with the Rocky Lombardi and Wyatt Reed finals match for me, you know the call at the end was the stall call that put it into overtime. I sometimes when I watch that over, I'm like, man, I wonder if he didn't even mean to do that. You know, and if he didn't mean to, like, what do you do after you make the call and you like realize that you didn't,
Made a mistake.
like that you didn't want to? Like, do you take it back or you just have to go with it?
I know. Sometimes at camp, I'll officiate a few matches, and sometimes I'll make a mistake. I'm like, I'm sorry, I did not mean to blow the whistle there. I'm apologizing to you. I did not mean to blow the whistle. I got a little excited. We're gonna go back.
Thank God I'm not officiating like a
I
big
know.
match right now.
I know. I'm not at the state finals where I could actually sit and apologize to you in front of everybody. Yeah. So,
All right, Keely Connor Lawning says the Serbasic twins. We knew them during college. They came to our wedding. Tim and Tom, not Todd. It was Tom.
that's right.
Tom.
That's right.
Yep. Yep. Wapello, Iowa. Wapello, Iowa. Wapello is Mediapolis's big rival. A
Yeah.
small school. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew
They're
that.
about 15 miles down the road.
I knew
I
that.
Yeah.
Right. came down to see Quentin wrestle. I don't think I'd ever been in Minneapolis's gym. I don't think, but then who's the coach that lives by the high school? Had a long career as the athletic director at Wapello, but he coached at Columbus Junction.
Bill Plain,
Right, right.
Hall
I
of Famer
know.
Bill Plain.
But think about that.
And
The
he
living
was walk on.
high
He was
school.
walk on. You know that?
Yes, he was. I didn't know that. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
I love Bill. I love him. Yeah, but he was there coaching that day because he was at Notre Dame coaching or at Burlington the day
Hmm.
that I was down there. So I visited with him that day. But he told me he lives a couple blocks from the high school, and I knew he was the AD at Wapello, and then he was a long-term Hall of Famer at Columbus. That's kind of
Hmm.
weird. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'll see him at a gas station. I'll never know. I don't even know whether to say hello to him or not because they're so competitive.
Right. That's
And
right.
with a guy like Plain, I sometimes wonder if the competitiveness transfers off.
Right.
He never
Right.
really looks excited to see me, so I just always, uh, but
Yeah.
uh, but I run into him all the time. He's a Meepo guy.
I know
As
he
weird
is.
as that sounds,
I know.
in as much as he's hated our program over the years, because the rivalries. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Bill
So he
Plain, legend. God, he's coached
won a
some great
state title.
guys.
State title last year, right? Won a state title in
Mhm. Yep, for
2022.
Notre Dame.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. And you'll appreciate this because that day I was down there, I think I was down there for the conference tournament last January or whatever it was, February. And I talked to him. I visited with him, and he told me about where he lived. And I said, "Man, your team looks great. Congrats." He's like, "Coach, coaching. It's anything could go wrong at any time." He said, "We got problems too. It's just like, and it's the truth. If you're
Yeah,
coaching at a high level, there's always things you're trying to work through. And it could be simple things, it could be complicated things, but there's always something that you're working through.
definitely. He's always a realist, and he is always a philosopher as well.
Is he? That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way I've picked up on it.
Cool.
This is
Yeah.
just from a Meepo guy, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
outside looking in.
Yeah. Well, that statement suggests that too.
Joel Marsden says, "Dave, did Coach Lonning exaggerate? Were you really that slow?"
I was that slow. He exaggerated. Yes, that was one of his master skills. Was he exaggerated at such a level that was not realistic, but almost realistic. So he could get you to believe something because it was almost believable, but just beyond what was real, right? And
Mhm.
some people would say he was full of crap and that he stretched the truth all the time. But that was an amazing motivating tool because he would tell you this. But to answer that question, I was definitely that slow. I did not win matches on speed. I did not win matches on feel. So I had to win matches other way.
Same here. I feel your pain on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I won a lot of matches. Like I was really strong,
Yeah.
but it made up for my but speedy. My brother Brennan, incredibly fast. I mean, that's
Yeah.
his best skill.
He is. Yeah.
Which I had hip dysplasia. I didn't know it until it ended my career.
Wow.
I didn't. It wasn't discovered until my junior year in college. I had to have reconstructive surgery on my hips to fix it.
Oh my God.
I've been on top of the world since. But I always wonder if I would have been faster if I didn't have that.
I'm sure you
Probably.
would.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Um, yeah. It's like, man, mom, dad, why couldn't you have got me leg braces? Like, why couldn't I have gotten the Forrest Gump treatment?
Voice
But
braces. That's what I need. Metal
back
braces.
is crooked as a question mark. Justin, my brother, is still tuning in. He says, awesome idea was regarding the Pindock sponsored wrestle off. Well,
Yeah. There
this
you
may be
go.
one of those plans that I need to follow through with.
There you go, man. I'm gonna reach out to Kreider and O'Gara. I'm gonna put it on the radar.
One of my old teammates, Chad McGinnity, is tuning in. He says, if they're if there's mat, it's not. If they're on the mat, it's not out.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
No out of bounds. I like it. Yeah. No out of bounds.
Thanks for
All
tuning in,
right.
Chad. Good to hear from you. Keeley says Bill Plain from Waukon, mine and Greg's hometown. Greg really thought a lot of him. He was a bit older and he helped Greg.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I knew that too. I knew Greg spoke highly of him for sure. It's awesome.
My
Hopefully,
brother Brennan. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, sorry.
Oh, my brother Brennan. He had something to say about Coach Plain. He says Plain is good shit. Just a reserve dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope Lean follows this. I hope he sees this, man. A lot of great compliments about him here.
Yeah, yeah. If he watches this, then he'll know that I've just been too afraid to say hi all these years. I'm not a jerk myself. I'm
Right?
just intimidated.
I'm just a little reserved.
That's right, just a little bit reserved.
Yeah.
And the last comment says, I think it's the last one,
Ah,
says
man. Yeah,
TLN. Hey,
yeah,
coach, from
yeah.
Hunter
That's
Goodwin,
Hunter's a good young guy in our program from Wyoming, three-time finalist, four-time
Wyoming.
placement from Wyoming, and he's tough. He's tough, and he battled some injuries the first couple of years, but he's coming on, and we're excited about him. Really excited.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool. What do you know about the wrestling scene in Wyoming? Because I don't. I honestly I don't know much, but I'd like to learn more.
I learned a lot from these guys. Here's what I learned: anywhere I go, anywhere I see a Wyoming shirt, I said, "Hey, do you know either Hunter or the other guy on our team, Trent from Wyoming?" They know him. It's a tight knit community. That's what I learned.
Awesome.
It's not a big community, but it's a tight knit community. And to me, the guys that I watch from Wyoming compete at the events that I'm at, I like. They're hard nosed, tough guys, and the guys we have on our team are tough guys too. So yeah, it's a tight knit group I think out there. I've gained a lot of respect for it the last 2 years since these guys have been on their team.
Well, that's where it all starts.
Yeah,
Like with the Iowa guys back in the day, with the Gibbenses and Kerbers and all, they were all tight knit. Back
yeah,
when wrestling wasn't there weren't as many people doing wrestling from a young age. But that's how they kind of started becoming dominant. Was forming a tight knit community that traveled together and stuff.
yeah, right.
And yeah, it sounds like they're off on the right
Yeah,
foot.
I think so. I think so. There's some good wrestlers in Wyoming.
Oh, we have a legend that just tuned in. This is one of my favorite. Man, I love Danielson. It says Hunter Goodwin. I'll be watching you. Good luck.
Cool. That's really cool. That's great.
Do you remember Dan from Albia?
I'm so bad with names. If I can't see very well.
He wrestled Mark Schwab when Schwab won his fourth, and then
Wow.
the next year he was this close to beating Jason Kelber in the finals. Can you
Wow.
imagine wrestling Schwab and then Kelber in the finals?
Oh, what a draw. Oh my god, man. Oh my god.
One of the like hands down one of the he almost and he went well with Kelber. I mean just one little sway of the momentum he would have beaten him.
Wow. Two of
Um,
the best. Two of the best from the state of Iowa. Right? I mean, you're talking about the 80s too. We're talking about the heart of Iowa wrestling, like you said earlier, right?
right.
State finals in the 80s. I mean, those were great brackets and great
Hmm.
wrestling. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was tough.
your analogy of that too might be right on because you look at the University of Iowa, right, and all the titles they were winning in the '80s, and a lot of those guys were Iowa guys that were on that team at that time, right?
Hmm.
So you might be right on with that
Be
analogy.
really cool if Wyoming, built something from this little core that they've got going.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It'd be something they'd be proud of forever.
yeah, for sure.
Kirk Landon says, my team's wrestling manager in Tennessee from last season moved to walk on for her senior year of high school.
What? Wow, that's cool. Rest of it.
Yeah.
Send a name somehow, and they probably know about her over there already. I'm guessing, but
This is a good guy. I met him last week on the show, and man, the great people that you meet in this sport. I mean,
yeah,
it just um, that fact is reiterated every day for me.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Kirk was tough. Yeah.
All right, well, gosh, we talked wrestling for 2 hours and 18 minutes. Where does time go?
You're the man, dude. You are the man. You are the man. Way to go.
Man, I'm actually amazed with. I mean, like your wrestling memory.
Yeah.
Um, Not trying to brag, but I'm a guy that people assume, that people give the same compliment to quite a bit. Like, how do you remember all this wrestling stats? I'm sitting here amazed with how much you know. I
They
feel
might
like
have
you
had
know more
some,
than I do.
I might have had some of it wrong, but it's in the ballpark at least. But yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
got the Luther stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. This is
Well,
fun, dude. You got to come up fishing. Come up here.
for sure. I would love to catch my second walleye ever.
We'll go
And
right near the Minnesota border, and let's do this. We'll catch a trout right near the Minnesota border. So you can catch one in the southern part of Iowa on the Mississippi. Didn't you say you are
I'm
north
a record holding trout fisherman.
from the furthest south point in the Mississippi? You said right.
Nobody has ever caught a trout further south on the Mississippi than me. And I
Unbelievable.
didn't even know what it was. I put it on Snapchat first, and the caption said, "What is this? A walleye?" And that's the picture they used for the when they posted it on the DNR story. So all these trout fishermen that are like dying to like set a record like that are just like, "What? What? This guy doesn't even know what it is."
I got a kick out of that.
I caught it off of a little piece of goldfish that I caught from my mom and dad's pond.
Who knew? Hey, when you
Uh,
come up, bring a goldfish with, man. We can catch some more up
It must be the trick, I guess.
there. Maybe.
One of
Maybe.
the weirdest things that's ever happened to me, and I like it. I like that. I like being a record holding trout fisherman, even though I've never fished for trout in my life.
That's about right. That's
But
funny.
I'd actually like to see what it's like to actually fish for trout.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
since I'm a record holding trout fisherman, I figure I might as well see what it's all about.
You'll probably get skunked. We probably won't catch you.
Probably, if I'm going for them, then I'm probably not going to catch them.
All of us. Yeah, that's about how it always is, right? We're trying to catch them, but it doesn't work out that way.
But yeah, I would love to. My Brennan and Justin and Shay, like we're all
Take a road
fishing
trip.
maniacs. So like
Yeah,
we'd all like to do it.
you do it. Ship
We're
them out in the night. Yeah,
oh
it's
yeah,
beautiful up here. Beautiful. It's
right
awesome.
on, right on.
And
All right, well, I've got some girls I need to get make sure are going to
okay,
bed.
man. Yeah.
But
Thanks, Dennis.
would love to have you on the show again.
Love to. Love to.
All right, anytime, man, anytime.
Okay, sounds
But
good. Let's keep in touch. Good. Thanks for all this, and thanks for everybody that tuned in.
yep, yep. And I would like to thank you all as well. All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Appreciate it.